Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching first part of What If Naruto Was Framed by Hidden Leaf Village. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Konoha at 8 a.m. Shizune knocked on the door while standing outside the office. She whispered to herself, she better not be sleeping again. Tsunade was once again sleeping when she silently opened the door after hearing no answer. Shizune exhaled deeply. Not much has changed in this area. When she got to her desk, she discovered that yesterday's paperwork was still incomplete. She awoke her mentor with a gentle shake. Tsunade. Sama, you can't sleep like this. What would people say if they saw you? Tsunade awoke and gave a groggy response, they can kiss my. Shizune's interruption, Tsunade. Sama, prevented her from forming any more negative habits. It's time to wake up Tsunade. Sama. Stretching, Tsunade stood up. She yawned as she noticed the growing amount of paperwork. Is it me or is the paperwork breeding like rabbits? Shizune laughed. No, that's just from this morning. Tsunade let out a groan. She glared directly at the paperwork and said, I have half a mind to use a Kaiden jutsu to make me a small bonfire. She would have retired long ago if she had realized how much work it would be. Tsunade was left to prepare for yet another busy day after Shizune discreetly excused herself and returned to work. Tsunade leaned back in her chair and yawned. On her desk, she saw the daily newspaper strewn about. After making herself a cup of tea, she began to read the newspaper. She dropped the cup when she noticed something while looking through the newspaper. The cup broke into numerous pieces as it dropped from her hand and struck the floor. Shizune rushed in after hearing something break. Are you all right, Tsunade? Sama? Tsunade shook her head slowly. Without delay, she rummaged through her drawers, discarding papers and scrolls in her quest for something. Shizune went over to her desk to investigate the loud noise. When she saw Tsunade take out a small piece of paper, she stopped reading the newspaper, which she had started to look for something strange. With a disappointed shake of her head, Shizune asked, the lottery? Did you lose again? You have to stop gambling, Tsunade. Sama. A Hokage with a debt the size of a mountain isn't good for someone of your reputation. Tsunade gazed at the ticket and said, no, it's not that. Shizune, I just won the grand prize. Shizune lets out a gasp. This wasn't good. Horrible. Tsunade nodded her head and asked, are you sure you won? With haste, Shizune picked up the ticket and compared the numbers. She had truly triumphed, and it was unbelievable. Naruto nearly died when Orochimaru was in town the last time she won anything. The two of them didn't enjoy the memory. What does this mean, Tsunade? Sama. Tsunade took a seat again and pondered. Shizune nodded before returning outside. I don't know, Shizune. But be on high alert, something's bad is brewing. Why'd I keep picturing Naruto? Tsunade asked, turning to face the window. She noticed that the sun was briefly obscured by clouds as they passed over it. I hope all is well with you, Naruto. Sir, we have spotted the target. Do you want us to approach him? Fox examined their target closely. How come you would remain out in the open like that? The victim was baiting himself. He was waiting for them, luring them out into the open. Fox had all the time in the world, so it was a shame that plan wouldn't work. Tiger, stay down. It's too soon to attack. Tiger stepped back into the trees to await further instructions. Affirmative, sir. Moving back into position now. He turned around when he heard some sounds coming from behind him. Eagle. A slender figure moved forward, out of the tree shadows. The target is just standing there, Eagle said, pointing to the man in the open yard. Why don't we go in there and just kill him? The question was answered for Tiger by a voice before he could respond. Because the place is carefully monitored and there are 3 guards at each end of the house, making it a total of 12 fully armed bodyguards. If you want to be stupid and walk into your future gravesite, be my guess. It'll be less paperwork for me to do. My question now is why are you still here and not at your post? Fox appeared behind his teammates. Eagle and Tiger turned around. Sir, both of them bowed. In the hopes that the captain wouldn't take it personally, Tiger shoved Eagle away and said, forgive Eagle, sir, she's new to the squad. Fox just gave her a quick glance before slinking away. Eagle watched as her captain, the only man she knew, vanished. Is he always like that? Tiger chuckled. You'll get used to it. Eagle let out a sigh, but he's so infuriating. Eagle turned to face Fox, who was standing in front of her. I said get back to your post. I don't like repeating myself. From her perspective, her captain appears somewhat menacing. She was caught off guard and collapsed. Hi. She fought to stand again, and as she did, her captain vanished into the smoke. Behind her mask, her eyes enlarge. Cage bushin'? Keeping an eye on the estate, Tiger shrugged and said, yeah, captains like that. Eagle Shushin took a step back to her position. He should lighten up. After half an hour through the headset, Fox voiced, Eagle, Tiger. Get ready. We're going in. You two are going in the back way. I'm taking the direct approach. He gave the signal after waiting 5 seconds. Okay. Move in. Both Tiger and Eagle inhaled deeply before responding. Affirmative. The three-person team, Fox, Eagle, and Tiger, ran in to finish a rank's assassination that their cage had ordered. Bloodshed and screams came from the heavily guarded mansion. Kai Yen, a corrupted daimyo, had once guarded the area, but it was now deserted. A ninja is supposed to lead a brief life. For their cages, ninjas are like soldiers, ready to sacrifice themselves for them without hesitation. The best soldiers are those who are prepared to sacrifice everything for the sake of completing the mission, even if it means sacrificing all of your values for a single moment. Although there are numerous routes in life, there isn't a single one that can be referred to as the correct one. Fox, as he was known, was aware of this. He is aware of the danger to the ninja's life and that such work is a serious profession and not a game for kids. Tiger entered the room and said, Taiko, are we done here? Eagle came in shortly after him. More than 20 dead bodies, all in some form of mutilation, were the first things she saw. Both heads and other body parts were absent. She quickly took off her mask to throw up after feeling noxious. Fox pivoted and gave her a fierce look. Tiger tried to soothe Fox by waving his hands in front of him. Easy Taiko, she's new. Remember that. Eagle noticed Fox staring at her when he looked up. If you're going to vomit every time you see something like this, then get the hell off my team. I have no need for weaklings. Tiger looked away. He pitied Eagle. He had heard that the captain was among the most cruel members of the force. Eagle reapplied her mask and got to her feet. She glanced around the room and asked, you didn't need to kill every one of them. Was it really necessary to kill everyone? Fox quickly produced a scroll and inserted Kai Yen's head into it. Fox began to leave, and Tiger trailed behind. In this job, there can be no survivors, better get used to it, we're leaving. Eagle fixed her gaze on her captain. Despite the fact that the man was clearly unharmed, there was evidence of a battle that had taken place here. Swords were broken, blood was everywhere, and the captain's clothing remained blood-free. Her captain was standing by the door, but she was too preoccupied with her brief analysis to notice him. Eagle jolted back to reality and rushed to catch up with her team, saying, are you coming or are you going to keep vomiting? Do it on your own time and stop wasting mine. By the time the team returned to Konoha, it was nearly midnight. Eagle was too exhausted to go on. She glanced at the other two members of her team. They appeared to have just returned from a stroll. She looked up, hoping that for once he would be forgiving. Sir, can we stop for a minute or something? She asked. She was leaning over, supporting herself with her knees, when Fox turned around. How the hell did you manage to pass the exams like that? Either the proctors must have pitied you or you bribed your way through. Eagle gave him a growl because she was too exhausted to put up with this nonsense any longer. Tiger restrained her just as she was ready to throw herself at him. He whispered in her ear, calm down, he's always like this. Just don't let him get to you. Fox approached the entrance. Katetsu, Azumo, are you guys there? The voice shouted back, grumpy, who goes there? Azumo recognizes the Anbu captain right away and says, it's Anbu Team Fox reporting back from a mission. You couldn't simply look at him once and forget about him. Fox was well known throughout Konoha and could be described as dangerous and frigid. As the Anbu captain, he was well known and revered by both the ninjas and the villagers. He is feared by his adversaries as the Silent Storm. Only when you're dead will you know where he is. The mere thought of the man chilled him to the bone. Azumo bowed to him as he emerged from the box. Go right ahead, sir. The Hokage is expecting you. Without a word, Fox passed the Chunin that was bowing. Katetsu just sat there and watched the action unfold. He gave a headshake. Few people were aware of the captain's identity, and even fewer were aware of the true identity behind the mask. Fox is said to be comparable to Itachi of Akatsuki, who was said to be comparable to Jiraiya of the fabled Sanins. He always enjoyed watching Fox perform his duties. He exudes a quiet, eerie vibe, but it was also cool to know that Konoha had someone this powerful working for them as their Hokage. Fox turned to his group. Eagle was a little behind him, and Tiger was right behind him. He gave a headshake. Both of you are dismissed. Get out of my sight. With a nod, Tiger started to leave, pulling Eagle along. with only one goal in mind. Fox avoided sight. Eagle gave Fox the finger when he vanished. What the hell is with that guy? It's like he got a stick up his ass. Tiger erupted in laughter. Captain's been like this since he enlisted 4 months ago. Eagle tightened her jaw. She gripped her knuckles and slammed the wall, causing some rubble to fall off, saying, "God damn it. I hate him more than I hate the demon. If I had my way, both of them would have been dead by now." Tiger remained behind and watched how she behaved. He gave a headshake. He vanished, leaving her by herself. "He gave us the night off. I'm going back to relax. I suggest you do the same." The day she joined his team, Eagle cursed. Before she vanished too, she gave the wall one final punch. The night winds made the atmosphere a little cold as Fox moved through the tower's empty corridors. The cold didn't bother Fox because he enjoyed it. The sensation was revitalizing. He approached the door of the Hokage. It was open, because no one, save for a chosen few, dared to enter without permission. Tsunade always kept it open. It would only be closed if she was in a meeting or asleep. She was scrawling frantically on the papers when Fox entered the room. He coughed when she didn't acknowledge his presence. Tsunade noticed Fox standing in front of her when she looked up from her paperwork. Fox reporting in from a completed mission. Hokage Sama. Stretching, Tsunade rose from her seat. She yawned and motioned to Fox to shut the doors. Tsunade pulled out a bottle of sake as Fox shut the doors. "So I take it your mission was successful?" Fox gave a head nod. He stood waiting for his next command, saying, "It went off without a hitch." A sip of Tsunade's sake was taken. "You know, you can remove your mask when it's only the two of us." Fox did not move as he stood there. "I don't feel like it, Hokage Sama." Tsunade looked at him angrily. Fox didn't try to take off the mask, saying, "Maybe you didn't hear me. I wasn't asking you if you felt like it. I'm ordering you to." Tsunade let out a sigh. "Please take it off, Naruto." Fox let out a sigh and gave in. Slowly, he raised his hands to his mask and took it off. He looked directly at Tsunade when he opened his eyes. Tsunade turned to face the boy and said, "Hello Tsunade." Sama. She had lost the happy boy she had known. His body toned up. His arms and chest muscles are clearly visible. His face no longer resembled that of a young adolescent. Instead, it was that of a dashing young man who had lost the majority of his baby fat. He has completely changed since joining the ranks of Anbu. He would never be mistaken for the brat he used to be. She glanced down at her sake saucer before turning back to Naruto. She threw the saucer against the wall and began sipping from the bottle, saying, "Ah, screw it. Naruto, have a seat." Naruto walked over to her desk and took a seat. "I will have the report to you within the hour. What is my next mission, Tsunade Sama?" She set her bottle down and sat down again. Realizing what she was about to say, Tsunade interrupted herself, saying, "Naruto, I think you're working too much. Slow down and enjoy life. Go out and get yourself another girl." Naruto sat there, completely emotionless. Tsunade learned of Sakura and Naruto's separation. Through the local grapevine, she learned about it from Ino herself. She has been meaning to ask Naruto what actually transpired between them, but he was always on a mission when she tried to find him. "Naruto. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it like that." Naruto gave a headshake. "Don't worry yourself about it, it's nothing." Tsunade takes a sip of sake again. "Want to talk about it, Naruto?" she asked, closely observing his expressions. Thus far, she discovered that he was emotionless, like a statue. It was true that he had changed. He was no longer the boisterous, gregarious brat that he had been. Now he was setting out on missions as if they were becoming obsolete. She sighed when she didn't hear back from Naruto. "Listen Naruto, I'm worried about you. Hell, you even got Jiraiya to worry about you, and that man never worries about anything except his books." Naruto's head lowered. Naruto paused for a minute before saying, "We." Naruto took his time, attempting to determine the most effective way to inform her without going over too much. Found out that we weren't exactly right for each other. Like a broken record, he was mentally reliving the scenes. No matter how hard he tried, he was unable to forget it. Rewind 5 months prior, you could have argued that Naruto was the happiest man on the planet. There was nothing that could have defeated him. He and Sakura had been together for 2 months, and nothing could make him unhappy. Tonight, he went on a date with Sakura to commemorate their anniversary. He could always see the joy he brought to her world when he gazed into her eyes. He was unaware that everything would soon change. Azumo chuckled softly about Tsunade and Naruto's relationship. Only Naruto had the audacity to address her in that manner and with that tone. Well, she also said that if you don't come, she's closing down the ramen stand and banning ramen from Konoha. Naruto screamed at the man. What? Azumo's ears were covered. Naruto was gone when he looked back up, but there was a mound of dust the boy had left behind. He laughed inwardly. Same old Naruto. Naruto stormed into the room and yelled, Oba-chan, you better not touch the ramen. Tsunade struck him over the head with her fist before he could continue. She scowled at the boy and said, I thought I told you not to call me that, Naruto. After rubbing his head, Naruto returned the glare. Shikamaru coughed a little bit. Seems like they forgot that I'm also in here, how troublesome. Tsunade sat back down in her chair after jolting back to reality. Naruto trailed after her and joined Shikamaru. Hey Shikamaru, how's Tamari treating you? Shikamaru exhaled deeply. Same old, women are just too troublesome. A cracking sound caused the boys to turn around again. Tsunade gazed directly into the young Chunan's eyes and asked, what was that, Shikamaru? She nodded her head and opened a folder, saying, nothing. I'm sending you two, along with a team, on a rank S mission. Yada! Exclaimed Naruto. You guys are leaving tonight. When Naruto heard the news, he stopped bouncing up and down. He was supposed to have his night tonight. Can it be tomorrow, Oba-chan? Tsunade tightened her jaw. She will be able to get rid of him in just a few more hours. She told herself over and over again. No, it has to be tonight because we have gotten word that Sasuke is in an isolated town just north of here. As I recalled, you wanted to be in this mission. Naruto fell silent. He gazed intently at the floor before raising his head. He nodded his head and said, that's right, I have to bring him back. So who else are we going with? Shikamaru opened the file that Tsunade tossed at him and read the contents. Neji, Kiba, Shino, Lee and Choji. Naruto grinned. It's time to bring our lost buddy home. After 3 days, despite being battered and bruised, the special convoy team returned to the village. Together with Sasuke and Kabuto, they had fought Orochimaru's new and improved Sound 4. Each of them regarded their victory as a blessing because it was not an easy battle. It was worst for Naruto. He was on the verge of death from the fight with Sasuke. Shikamaru was present for the whole conflict. Naruto barely recovered after Sasuke pushed a Chidori through his chest before using an Udama Rasengan to knock him unconscious. Then Shikamaru had the luxury of using his Kageme no Jutsu to drag them back. About halfway through the journey, Naruto woke up and carried Sasuke back by himself. Every medical professional in the village hurried to meet the team when he returned. Sakura pushed people aside as she rushed through the crowd. When he got back, he thought she would embrace him, but instead she shoved him aside and started working on Sasuke. Naruto ignored it because he believed Sasuke required more medical care than he did, but as time passed, Sakura was constantly occupied with Sasuke when he visited her. A week later, he entered the hospital room and heard what they were saying. So Sakura, would you like to have dinner with me tonight if you're not busy? Naruto chuckled to himself. That's not what she would do. She is aware that I plan to come get her and take her out to supper this evening. He couldn't believe it was happening, so he said, of course Sasuke-kun. He kept listening to what they were saying. Are you sure? I mean, Naruto's been here waiting for you a lot. Are you guys going out or something? It's not really like that. At that moment, Naruto's heart broke into a million fragments. He started moving very fast and didn't care where he went. As he was running out, he ran into Shikamaru and muttered an apology. Later that evening, staying in his apartment, Naruto tinkered with the necklace he was meant to present to Sakura. He had already sobbed himself to tears and was not in the best of moods, so there was nothing more to cry about. He pondered who it might be as he slowly stood up after hearing a knock on the door. He noticed Sakura standing there apprehensively when he opened the door. Hi Naruto, can we talk? He gave her a nod and followed her outside. Without turning to face her, Naruto said, so talk. Sakura inhaled deeply and wished for luck. Naruto, I think we should break up. I need some time to myself to concentrate on my work. To himself, Naruto chuckled. He got up and shut his eyes, saying, you mean to study Sasuke? Okay, if that's what you want. For a moment, Naruto gazed at her, trying to determine whether she was enchanted or something. He sighed when he couldn't find anything. Before she left, Sakura gave him one last glance. As she left, Naruto watched her and said, I'm sorry, Naruto. Naruto returned to his apartment and let his grief consume him. The following day, he noticed Sakura and Sasuke lying next to each other and holding hands in their usual training area. With his fist clenched, Naruto hurried out of the area. On the same day that he joined Anbu and swiftly rose through the ranks to become the captain, his entire world changed. End of flashback. You know I'm always here if you want to talk Naruto. We all care about you, me, Shizune, Iruka, Jiraiya, Kakashi. All your friends. Tsunade glanced at the child. It was impossible for her not to feel sorry for him. The boy has endured a great deal, and more problems are yet to come. She hardly ever saw the boy anymore because he was constantly preoccupied with other things and never showed up for social gatherings. She made the decision that something needed to be done. She might be able to revive the former Naruto. Naruto, as for your next mission, it's ranked SS. If you accept, I'll go into details with you right now. When Naruto learned that it was ranked SS, his ears pricked up. I accept the mission. Tsunade smiled. Your mission is to act as a regular civilian for the next 3 months. Consider yourself on a vacation, Naruto. Naruto scowled. Tsunade gave the boy a dirty look for his outburst. Is this some kind of a joke, Tsunade? Sama? I'm not laughing here, she said. Naruto realized and composed himself. I do not see the logic behind your thinking, Tsunade. Sama. Tsunade gave the boy a smile. She burst out laughing as Naruto scowled, unsure of what to do. It's called relaxation. Trust me, you like it. Now get out of my office and start your rank SS mission. He made the decision to consider it while eating some ramen. Head bowed, Naruto made his way to the door. Good night, Oba. Chan. Tsunade's head shot up to see if she actually heard the boy say those words, but there was already a door closed when she turned to face it. A ninja knelt in the center of a pitch black room and said, He's back, sir. Should we start now? Before the kneeling ninja, an enigmatic figure nodded his head. Begin the operation immediately. Make sure to do this right or everything we planned up to this point will be for nothing. Right away, sir. The enigmatic figure began to laugh as the ninja vanished into the darkness. It's only a matter of time now. Before taking a seat at the counter, Naruto yelled, Oi, old man, 3 bowls of miso please. Tucci emerged from the rear. Tucci returned to the back and started preparing the noodles. Oh, it's you, Naruto. 3 bowls are coming right up. He returned shortly after with the 3 bowls of miso ramen. Naruto gazed at the ramen with hunger. As Tucci watched his best customer quickly devour it, he laughed. Slow down, Naruto, or you'll end up choking. Naruto slowed down after finishing his first bowl. Wefafsafume. He caught Tucci's attention. It's rude to speak with your mouth full, boy. Didn't I teach you any manners? Naruto swallowed the noodles quickly before rephrasing his query. I'm sorry. Where is Ayame? Chan. Tucci watched the boy finish his bowl and said, Oh, she's out on a date with some boy. How is this boy able to eat so much ramen and stay so skinny? His eating habits were mysterious. Do you want any more, Naruto? Naruto gave a headshake. Tucci nodded and took the money Naruto placed down, saying, I have to turn in tonight, old man. I'll stop by tomorrow. Tucci dropped the plates as a result of an explosion that shook the bar as Naruto was leaving. Naruto hurried back inside to see how the elderly man was doing. Old man, are you okay? He asked. Tucci shook his head and slowly got to his feet. Naruto glanced at the elderly man and said, Yeah, I think I'll be okay, Naruto. He then nodded goodbye. 4 members of the Anbu stood there with their arms crossed, stopping Naruto as he went back outside. Ansatsu Senjutsu Tokushu Butai, or Anbu for short, was the village's security task force. Managing high-risk missions to other nations and handling assassinations, they're the elite of the elite. The Hokage is directly in charge of them. With a quick punch that took Naruto by surprise, the Anbu wearing the dog mask asked, What can I do for you gentlemen at this hour of the night? He was flung back into the ramen bar counter by the punch. Tucci arrived to investigate the disturbance. What's going on here? Why are you beating on him? Stop right this instant. I will not allow fighting in my restaurant. Dog stood in front of Naruto, ignoring the man. Naruto Uzumaki, you are under arrested for acts of terrorism against Konoha. For destroying the Konoha hospital and killing 50 people in your little act. Naruto's eyes were shocked as he looked up at the man. What the hell are you talking about? I was here when the explosion occurred. Tucci swiftly defended his devoted client, the son he never had, saying, Yes, I can vouch for him. He was here eating ramen when it happened. The cat. Masked Anbu shot back, Shut up, you demon lover. Naruto stood up and turned to face the 4 Anbu. Well, you got the wrong guy. I didn't do it, so leave me alone. When Cat grabbed his arm, Naruto halted his attempt to push past the Anbu squad. You are coming with us, demon, or there will be trouble. Naruto swiftly undid it and tossed him aside. As Naruto turned to face the other Anbu preparing to attack, he said, "Don't touch me. I don't like it when people touch me without permission." Cat leapt back up and gave Naruto a backhand tackle. When Tuchi witnessed Naruto being tackled, he intervened. He pushed the Anbu away from Naruto and was ready to assist him in standing up when the individual wearing the wolf mask struck him in the stomach, knocking him to the ground. "Get off him this instant," he exclaimed. Tuchi was having trouble breathing and coughed up blood. Wolf spat venomously, "Stay out of this fight, you demon lover." A fist to the face caused Wolf to stumble back and tend to his broken, bloody nose as he turned around. Tuchi appeared beside Naruto, who slowly assisted him in standing up. "Are you okay, old man?" Tuchi gave Naruto a feeble smile. Before focusing on the other Anbu, Naruto nodded his head and said, "I'll be fine." The others were standing in front of them, and Cat was checking on Wolf's health. Naruto stood in front of Tuchi and said, "Your captain would have been ashamed of you guys for hitting on defenseless civilians." Dog chuckled. "The captain would have loved to beat your ass down, demon. Be glad he isn't here to soil his hands on some demon filth." Before turning his head, Naruto pushed the ramen chef to the chair. "You can accuse me of all the bullshit crimes you want, but when you guys involve innocent people in the fight, you guys just crossed the line." Naruto vanished from view. The Anbu team searched everywhere. Cat surveyed the area, ready to strike the demon once. In his ear, he heard a whisper. "How the hell did you make it into Anbu?" He felt someone dragging him down, but when he turned around, there was nobody there. He screamed as he struggled to get back up. Dog witnessed a teammate being pulled underground. Cat. The other players rushed to the location where their teammate had disappeared to. Wolf yelled, "Damn you, demon! Come out and fight us," into the sky. Naruto emerged from the shadows and said, "Are you sure you guys are part of Anbu? Genins give me a better challenge?" Naruto's eyes darted around to see Crow standing behind him, and he said, "Don't look down on us, demon." Even though Naruto had no idea who Crow was, he knew he was competent enough to sneak up on him from behind. Crow swiftly brought Naruto down with the ninjakin. Naruto just about leapt out of him. His orange shirt had multiple cuts on it when he looked down. Naruto breathed deeply and went through some hand seals before saying, "You son of a. That was my favorite shirt. Kaden. Karyu Enden." From Naruto's mouth, a massive fire dragon emerged, charging directly at the helpless Anbu. When Crow saw how big that dragon was, his eyes grew wide. "Oh shish. I'm in a bad spot." To save his captain, Wolf hurriedly went through some hand seals. Suiryuden no Jutsu. A water dragon was approaching Naruto when he turned around just in time. He saw the water dragon charging directly at his fire dragon and leapt away. The area was covered in steam as the two powerful dragons destroyed one another. Crow inhaled deeply and quickly made some hand seals. Futon. Daitopa. He exhaled, dispelling the steam in the area. Naruto was observed by the Anbu team simply lying motionless on the ground. Dog turned to face his team and asked, "Did we get him?" When they all shrugged, they moved in together. Unsure of what to make of the scene, they approached the body slowly. The body vanished in a cloud of smoke as they approached Naruto. When they turned around, they saw Naruto completing the final hand seal. Blundering idiots. Your captain would have been crying if he saw this battle. Doden. Yomi Numa. The ground swiftly became swampy, making it impossible for anyone to flee. "You guys aren't worthy enough to be in Anbu. Tell Cat I said hi when you guys see him." As the rest of Anbu sank into the earth, Naruto turned to leave. Before the entire Anbu division could pursue him, Naruto bounded off. When he returned to his apartment, he discovered more Anbu. After turning around, he vanished into a corner. Naruto entered a narrow, dead-end alleyway. After relocating to a corner, he sat there and pondered the situation. What on earth is happening here? I am aware that I did not blow up the hospital in Konoha. Naruto had a lot of ideas running through his head. He heard a garbage can being knocked over and looked up. He growled slightly and said, "I'll kill you in more than 15 ways if you take one more step into this alleyway." He didn't want to hear any more of this nonsense at the moment. The voice exclaimed, "Naruto?" That voice was familiar to Naruto. "Shizune-san?" he asked as he noticed the figure's shadow slowly moving toward him. Making sure it was the real one, Shizune approached him slowly. "It's me, Naruto." Naruto pulled out a kunai and held it in front of her. "How did you know I was here?" Shizune halted his advance upon spotting the kunai. "Tsunade. Sama saw your location through her crystal ball. She needs to talk to you quickly." Naruto gave a head nod. Shizune saw the bloodstain on Naruto's clothing as he stood up. Before Shizune could ask any more questions, Naruto retorted, "It's not my blood." The pair hurried off in the direction of the Hokage Tower. Shizune came in through the door, and Naruto came in through the window. Tsunade wondered who it was when she heard the door open. Naruto. She turned quickly to see the boy leaning by the corner and said, "Right behind you." Then she immediately turned around to see who was standing by the door. When it was just Shizune, she exhaled with relief. Shizune said, "Thanks Shizune." He hurriedly shut the door and went inside as well. Tsunade glanced over at Naruto. "Naruto, what in the world happened to you?" "I was attacked by Anbu and now they're currently disposed of," Naruto stated icily. Tsunade dismissed the tone with a shrug. She glanced at him and asked, "So what happened, Naruto?" He appeared to have been through hell, and his clothes were in disarray. Naruto gave a shrug. "I don't really know." Tsunade gave her temples a massage. "Naruto. If you don't tell me, I can't really help you. Did you or did you not blow up the Konoha hospital?" Naruto gave her a fierce look. "Do you really believe that I would do something like that?" Tsunade collapsed in her seat. "No, but there are several key eyewitnesses that saw you entering and leaving as it exploded. The council is going to have a field day with this, Naruto. They have been looking for an excuse to execute you and now they may have the right reason." Naruto caught the attention of both women. He was silently standing in his corner, showing no signs of speaking. "Just tell me what you were doing, Naruto, and I'll help you out in any way I can." Naruto gazed at the door after opening his eyes. The door flew open, and Root members quickly crowded into the room. Danzo entered nonchalantly. "Thank you for capturing the fugitive Hokage. Sama." Tsunade tightened her jaw. "What the hell are you doing here?" Danzo grinned. "Why, to capture and detain the killer, of course. We received word that he was making his way up here and I thought he was going to kill you as well, Hokage. Sama." Tsunade struck the table with her fist. "This is my room and you're intruding. Leave now or I'll throw you and your root unit out." Danzo remained motionless. "Tell me you're not housing a wanted fugitive, are you now, Hokage? Sama. The council won't like this when they hear that their Hokage is siding with the demon." "How dare you!" exclaimed Tsunade. She gave the man a fierce look. He was right, she knew. She was already facing consequences for bringing Naruto here, and allowing him to escape would put everything at risk. Tsunade let out a sigh. "Fine, take him away, Danzo, and I want a meeting with the council now." Shizune's shocked eyes enlarged. "What? Tsunade? Sama, you can't be serious." Danzo grinned. "As you wish, Hokage. Sama." Naruto fixed his gaze on the root unit. Despite his lack of knowledge about them, he sensed that they were all taught to kill at will. He could flee right now, but that would make everyone in the village chase him. His eyes widened when he heard Tsunade say, "Take him to the Rank SS Prisoner Center." One of the most unusual and hazardous holding facilities in Konoha was the Rank SS Center. "What?" exclaimed Naruto. The root unit held him back as he started to struggle. Tsunade sighed and gestured to the door, saying, "Take him away." Danzo grinned. "You heard your Hokage. Do it." Tsunade saw Naruto give her a chilly look, but she didn't react. She was too preoccupied with persuading herself that this was the best course of action. Shizune nodded and vanished, saying, "Shizune. Gather everyone now." Tsunade observed Naruto being removed from her workplace. Hating herself for what lay ahead, she began to cry in the middle of her office. After half an hour, Tsunade brought her hands down to the table and said, "What the hell do you mean he's going to be executed at dawn?" She gave the Elder Council a fierce look. "You have no goddamn proof that Naruto was responsible for the explosion." Tsunade scowled at the one who raised the issue, saying, "We have our own eyewitnesses as well as sufficient evidence that shows him being responsible." Koharu glared back, just as fiercely. "If I didn't know any better, you guys were out to get him." Homura cleared his throat. "The clan heads have also came to a unanimous decision that he is to be executed for his actions. We have lived with the demon long enough. He is a liability to the village and everyone here. This meeting is over." "What? I'm the Hokage here. I didn't say this meeting was over," Tsunade exclaims, her eyes widening. Koharu paused and looked around. Tsunade was left to think for herself as she left, closing the door behind her. "You're just a political figurehead. You don't have enough power to overturn the council's decision." Wishing she could have smashed their heads in, Tsunade gazed at the door. "Oh my god, what have I done, Naruto? You filthy demon, get up, it's time for your trial." The guard kicked the bars, waking Naruto, who stirred briefly before rolling back on his side. Demon spawn, don't make me come in here. The guard pulled out a metal rod and began slamming the bars, breaking Naruto's sleep. He had not slept the night before, and the guard took pleasure in making his stay miserable and depriving him of food. He was angry at his location, without a bed, and forced to contend with the cold, filthy floor, a demon hater guard, and all the demon haters in the village. The guard's face flushed before he picked up a rock off the ground and threw it at Naruto. Go stuff your face, you insolent fly. After feeling something strike him in the head, Naruto got up and scowled at the guard before running and kicking the bars to frighten him. The guard stumbled when he saw him coming, and Naruto burst out laughing. Ah! Did I frighten the large, menacing guard? Laugh now, demon, said the guard as he slowly stood up. He motioned for the other guards to come and retrieve Naruto, who sighed and thought that Tsunade would somehow rescue him from this situation. I'll have the last laugh when I see your bloody body hanging. After an hour, Naruto was blindfolded and led around, and he was tense. Anyone would be tense when they are blinded and being led around by people who only want to kill them. He felt himself walking upstairs and onto a platform, and when he heard voices that he assumed were the villagers, he was startled to see that he was on a stage set in downtown Konoha, where it appeared that the entire village was present for his trial. Naruto approached a panel of judges, including Hishi Hyuga, Homura, Kaharu, Danzo, and Tsunade, and they all gave him a chilly glare, with the exception of Tsunade, who avoided eye contact. Naruto Uzumaki, you are here today because of your crimes against Konoha, Kaharu said, clearing her throat to indicate silence. Since you were a child, you have made fun of the village with your antics, but now you've gone farther. You killed the patients at Konoha Hospital by blowing it up. Are you ashamed? The audience began jeering at him and hurling tomatoes and fruits at him. Kaharu gave the crowd another signal to calm down, but this time he was happy with how they responded. I didn't cause any trouble, I wasn't even close to that goddamn hospital, Naruto retorted. Hishi got to his feet and said, enough, let's go ahead with the trial. You are charged with destroying Konoha Hospital and causing patient deaths, Naruto Uzumaki. How do you make a plea? He would have to play their game for the time being. Naruto gritted his teeth and looked around, seeing Anbu and root units everywhere, as well as Junins and Chunins simply standing around, watching the fictitious trial. I plead not guilty. As if slowly evaluating the boy, Hishi stood there and said, can you call your first witness to the stand? Gladly, was Naruto's reply. Tsunade sighed in her seat as the trial went on, realizing that Naruto could not win and that everyone was going to see the demon dead. Why aren't you doing anything, Tsunade? Jiraiya, things aren't looking great for Naruto. Tsunade recognized the voice, which was clear but comforting. Gazing at the boy, Jiraiya said, yeah. I am aware. Why on earth aren't you taking action? They have me at a cliff, Jiraiya, Tsunade sighed. I'll also be viewed as a traitor if I don't do anything. As if Naruto would have cared. Even Jiraiya, the great hermit, couldn't do much to help Naruto, so he silently stood next to Tsunade to watch the trial. This wasn't a trial. It was an excuse to publicly humiliate the demon, Jiraiya shot back, disgusted by the way things were being run. There was no hope for Naruto, he was up against 4 of the most ignorant people ever to walk this planet. The kid will have to use every trick known to man to pull off this final stunt, or else it will truly be his last. I give the Ichiraku Ramen Bar's ramen chef, Tucci, a call. When the explosion happened, he was present. Tucci went to the platform and stood in front of the judges. So Tucci, how long have you known the Dem.Air boy? Hishi asked, clearing his throat. Hishi made the necessary corrections and awaited the response. Tucci answered slowly, I've known him my entire life, sir. Hishi got to his feet and turned to face Tucci as though he was attempting to extract something from him. Then you know who he is. He's my best customer, of course. Tucci smiled and said, he even shielded me from the Anbu when they came to get him. The village was always against the boy, and this was his way of letting Naruto know he wasn't alone in this harsh world. How did he treat the Anbu that was dispatched to get him? Tucci paused for a moment. Well, first, they asked him to come for a crime he didn't commit, but he refused, and they started calling him a demon, and then they attacked him when he didn't comply with their orders. Hishi grinned and said, so he had something to hide and resisted an arrest? Naruto frowned at Hishi, who was manipulating words and justifications to suit his own ends. Surprised, Tucci said, no, the boy was eating ramen in my shop when the explosion occurred, so it was impossible that he was the one responsible for the arrest. Did you stay with him the whole time? With further reflection, Tucci said, well, no, I had to go and cook something, but the rest of the time, I was there. There we have it, Heishi said with a sly smile at Naruto. The boy could have made a cage bushin and sent it to attack the hospital while you were away. Tucci, I appreciate your time. Tucci was about to say something but was escorted off the platform, so he looked shocked at the Hyuga head. He gave Naruto a small smile as he passed him and said, I'm sorry, Naruto. It's okay, old man, Naruto said, shaking his head. I appreciate you being here. Tucci left the stage. Naruto looked back at Heishi and said, you cunning jerk. You have no right to change the story. Naruto began to reveal his intention to kill. Uzumaki, you're in my house now. Naruto glared at the man who was slow to enter the stage and said, I've been told you have proof that Naruto was the one who did this. I call forth Danzo to the spotlight. After giving his head a nod, Danzo called his eyewitness. Before turning to face Naruto, Danzo cleared his throat and said, I call forth Sasuke Uchiha to the stand. Sasuke was the last person Naruto would have expected to be on stage, and when he heard his name, his eyes widened. He approached Danzo and Heishi and said, Sasuke Uchiha, where were you on the night when the hospital exploded? After inhaling deeply, Sasuke responded, I was walking home with Sakura when it happened. A window broke and someone leapt out while we were a block from the hospital. I recognized the man and instantly activated my Sharingan. Unbelieving that Sasuke was turning against him, Naruto gazed at him and asked, who was this man, Sasuke? Sasuke inhaled deeply once more before pointing to Naruto and saying, it was him, sir. His attire was identical to what he currently wears. What? Stop this bullshit, Naruto yelled. Sasuke, you know it wasn't me. Naruto approached Sasuke after shrugging off his guards and said, I'm not laughing if this is a joke. Sasuke. The crowd erupted in yelling as Naruto held Sasuke up by the collar and stood in front of his face, saying, you know it wasn't me, you bastard. Playing with people's lives is sick. Heishi acted right away, saying, someone, hold him now. 5 Anbu pulled Naruto back, and the crowd began chanting death to the demon. To silence them again, Heishi held up his hand and said, how can you be certain that it was Naruto Sasuke? Naruto looked incredulously at the final Uchiha and said, Naruto is a master of the cage bushin and used it most effectively against me when he was fighting to take me back to Konoha. During your battle, what did he do to Bushin Sasuke, the cage? He made a Rasengan with a clone to distract me while the real one snuck behind me and hit me on the stomach with a Rasengan, Sasuke said, holding his knuckles tightly. Naruto looked at him in shock as the crowd gasped, saying, what the hell, Sasuke? Why do you not why? Demon, keep quiet. You've caused enough harm. Heishi had more guards to hold him back as he glared at Naruto. Please don't touch me, Naruto attempted, but was unable, to remove the guards from him. Get your captain here now, Heishi said, turning to face the Anbu that were positioned next to Naruto. He might be necessary for security reasons. Heishi was interrupted by Danzo, who said, I'm afraid we don't need to. Tsunade gasped at Danzo, saying, he knows, that bastard knows. Danzo gave Tsunade a naive smile before smirking at Naruto and pointing his cane in his direction. Your Anbu captain is right here. Naruto Uzumaki, otherwise known as the Silent Storm or better yet, our Anbu captain. Everyone stared at Naruto, stunned that their demon was in charge of the safety and security of the entire village. Isn't that right, Tsunade? Sama? Danzo gave Tsunade a smile. With the spotlight on her, Tsunade had no choice but to grit her teeth and nod. Our captain is that demon? From the crowd, another Anbu yelled. Danzo gave a nod. He has been watching you all, monitoring your every movement, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When I get out of here, Danzo, mark my words, I'm going to make you regret the day you ever took your first breath of air. Naruto snarled, knowing that he already hated the man and that there was nothing more to hate about him. He attempted to break free, but was restrained by more Anbu who leapt onto the platform. Look at the threat he just uttered. It demonstrates that your so-called Anbu captain is no longer reliable enough to defend you. The crowd began to spit and yell at Naruto. Tsunade had had enough. Cease this right away, everyone has secrets, she yelled. Naruto's second. I think it's time to repeal the third's absurd law. Secret is something more. Danzo cut her off. We no longer have anything to conceal. What are your judgments? Tsunade was rendered speechless when the majority of them nodded their heads. Cease. Even though the third is deceased, we never disregard a man's final request. Do you lack honor? The Anbu holding Naruto back stiffened as Jiraiya turned to face them. Release my apprentice now or you'll go through me. Jiraiya appeared in front of Danzo, staring him down and daring him to continue. After gathering his courage, Naruto said, "Thanks Ero, Sennin." The turn of events made Danzo scowl. "Jiraiya. Sama, what can I do for you?" "That law is not to be broken," Jiraiya said, staring at the man who was so vile on so many levels. "It is intended to be preserved for our generation and to pass away with it. How about we simply ask the audience that?" Danzo grinned as the crowd began to yell and shout, saying, "Looks like you just got your answer." He turned to face the audience and said, "We, the trial's judges, have finalized our answer." The crowd began to cheer as they announced, "We have decided that Naruto Uzumaki, the Kyuubi no Yoko, also known as the Silent Storm, will be sentenced to death for his crimes of attempted murder of one Sasuke Uchiha and the death and destruction of Konoha Hospital. Remain quiet. We're not done with this trial. Does anyone want to testify about Naruto's actions?" Jiraiya yelled over to the crowd. Everyone quieted down once again. He waited for someone to speak up. "Come on. You are his friends, aren't you?" This was unbelievable, Jiraiya growled, and nobody came forward to assist. While searching for his friends, Naruto noticed that they were dispersed throughout the crowd. Ino and Sakura gave him a shady look, which he could deduce was the source of their anger. Shino stood there wearing shades and displaying no emotion at all. Shikamaru was absent, but a startled Choji stopped eating. Kiba and Lee were staring at him with shocked expressions on their faces. Neji was holding Hinata back, preventing her from fleeing, and his friends were standing there as if they were frozen in ice. Jiraiya waited for someone to say something, and then he sighed when no one did. Naruto was still in shock when he turned around and passed him. "What are you guys doing? Aren't you all my pals?" Naruto screamed and met each of their eyes directly. "Naruto, you misled us. You misled us by claiming to be Kyuubi no Yoko and the Anbu captain," Kiba shouted back. "Naruto, you are nothing more than a liar. You're also a Kyuubi, and you even attempted to kill Sasuke? I believed I could rely on you, but now?" Sakura shouted. "I thought you guys were my friends," he said, shaking his head, staring at them with a blank expression on his face. "I must have been living in a dream all this time." "Demon, go to hell. I knew you were a bloody demon when you slaughtered all those people," he said, glancing to his right and seeing a familiar face. Eagle was attempting to charge forward, but Tiger was holding her back. They began chanting, "Death to the demon." Fearing the worst, Naruto began to back away when Tsunade approached him and put a hand on his shoulder while facing the audience. "The trial is over. The council's decision is," she said, taking a deep breath before continuing. Tsunade had better act now if she was going to do anything, Naruto thought as he stood there, eyes closed. "Death." Naruto opened his eyes in disbelief as the word reverberated in his head. He turned to face the individual, whom he could have described as a motherly figure or an older sister, who began to leave but glanced at Naruto, who was soon encircled by Anbu. "What? Tsunade. Sama." She immediately walked back to her seat and sat down after he glared at her with his cold blue eyes. Naruto turned to face the team he was in charge of. Ferret mockingly remarked, "Looks like we'll have a new captain soon." The others simply chuckled. "You're nothing but maggots compared to me," snarled Naruto. "You guys aren't even worthy of the Anbu title. Go get him." Danzo gave the order, and Naruto was covered and piled up by the Anbu dog. He heard footsteps coming closer and closer every second, and when he looked up, he saw Eagle with a sword in front of him. Eagle began twirling the sword to amuse the crowd with her sword skills before stopping in front of Naruto. "This is for the hell you put me through." She kicked him in the face, causing him to bleed from the lip. "Hold him up." Her fellow Anbu held him up, in front of the crowd. "Anything you want to say, demon?" "Friends are a figment of imagination," Naruto said with a sorrowful smile. He shook his head in dismay, saying, "I should have known better than to live in a fantasy world." He turned to Eagle and said, "And you, Eagle, are still a weak piece of shit that shouldn't have passed the exam." Eagle clenched her jaw and slashed out the sword, impaling him through the stomach as she watched blood splatter everywhere. Disregarding the pain, Naruto began to laugh and said, "I swear to God that even if I have to go through hell and back, I will come back and kill you all." He turned to face the judges, who all shivered because those were the coldest blue eyes they had ever seen. "Die demon." Red chakra blasted the area, blowing everyone away, and Naruto's wounds began to heal quickly as Eagle lowered the sword to strike his head, unleashing the power he had been holding back, the power of Kyuubi and himself, the power of one. "You wanted to see a real demon?" he asked the judges as he approached. It would be an understatement to say that they were terrified. but even Hiashi's face turned pale as Naruto unleashed even more chakra, blowing the desk away. Well, you got one right in front of you. In an attempt to defend the elders, a number of Anbu tackled Naruto away from them. Naruto laughed at the pathetic effort and said, "Die." The Anbu were quickly torn to pieces by a swift swipe of his chakra. "You have to stop him, Jiraiya." "Sama," Kaharu said, turning around to see Jiraiya simply standing there. "Jiraiya." "Sama. Oh, thank God you're still here." She bowed to him right away. "You expect me to help you after the way you treated him?" Jiraiya asked, laughing. "You old farts. Die by your own faults." She was shocked to see him walk past Naruto without doing anything, saying, "You won't be dragging me down with your pitiful choices." "Kiba." Naruto gritted his teeth and ignored the pain as he turned to face the judges and approached them slowly, the chakra blowing everything away before he took another step. Naruto turned around to see Neji in his stance, but he was startled back by a familiar voice saying, "You are within the range of my divination. Hake Hyaku Nijahachi Sho." Naruto smirked as he caught Neji's wrist and kneed him in the stomach as he tried to strike. "Is this demon enough for you?" He threw Neji in Hiyashi's direction after flipping him over. "Futon." "Daitopa," Naruto whispered as he effortlessly flipped through some hand seals. Magnitude winds swept everyone and everything away. Hiashi stumbled back to his feet as he watched Naruto leap away after passing Tsunade and giving her a fleeting glance before he fled. Everyone after the demon. As all able bodies started to chase after him, Tsunade stood there thinking back on what had just happened. "Konoha's own ignorance will be their own downfall," he said, shaking his head as a pair of crimson eyes watched from a distance. He remained hidden in the shadows, anticipating the time when he would make his grand entrance. Naruto continued running, attempting to put as much separation between himself and his assailants as possible. His heart began to race, and he was shocked by what had just transpired. He was no longer going to stop for anything. Nothing remained here for him. His execution date was the only thing he had left in this village, and he was positive that he would not be keeping it. As he ran away, Naruto glanced over his shoulder. He could see that there were perhaps 5 or 6 ninjas pursuing him right now. He scowled. They sent their remaining ninjas to pursue him even though he had done them a favor by fleeing without killing them. It must be foolish of the council to send these young ninjas to their deaths. These ninjas had nothing to do with his battle. He had a problem with the individuals who gave him the death penalty. Just them. With a surge of speed brought on by an increase in chakra output, Naruto left his pursuers in his wake. After leaping from a tree branch, Naruto effortlessly cleared 3 buildings, landed on an open rooftop, and vanished. When the ninjas arrived at the spot where Naruto vanished, they turned to investigate the situation. Kiba stuck his nose in the air and sniffed, searching for the correct scent. "Kiba-san. Where did he go?" Kiba asked. A low growl escaped his lips. His reputation as Konoha's top tracker wasn't undeserved. Once, 100 feet away, he smelled the scent of a missing ninja. Why couldn't he smell Naruto's scent if he was capable of doing that? For someone like him, it should be simple. Kiba gave a series of commands, instructing the men to search every inch of the village. "Split up, he's covering his scent somehow." "Let's see if you can hide now, you coward." Kiba grinned as he stood on the rooftop, looking around to see if anything had changed. Kiba shivered against the chilly wind as it blew in his direction. A hollow voice murmured into the wind, "Why do you resent me, Kiba?" And Kiba turned around. He was surprised to see nobody there. Although his instinct was screaming danger, his eyes told him that no one was there. He turned around again and saw an old friend in person. "What did I ever do to you?" Kiba took a step back, taken aback by the former captain's unexpected arrival. "Nah. Naruto." This was the man who was referred to as the Anbu captain and who was identified as the Silent Storm by the other villages. Naruto moved forward in search of answers, asking, "Did I ever hurt you?" "Stay back, demon." Kiba hurled a kunai in Naruto's direction after rapidly regaining his composure. As the kunai approached his face, Naruto remained still. The kunai was split in 2 with a swift swipe. Kiba's gaze expanded. There was no way chakra could have forged the kunai from the hardest metal. He saw that Naruto had his right hand folded up as if it were holding something. With his icy, vacant eyes, Naruto gazed at Kiba and said, "Take this as a warning. If you follow me again, I will dispose of you and everyone else who stands in my way." Nothing remained. Kiba's eyes were filled with fear and rage, which Naruto could see. The entire village was against him, and now everyone is against him. Was there really nobody left in this village who thought he was real? As these ideas filled Naruto's mind, he felt his heart shatter. Naruto heard someone yelling Kiba's name. Kiba, and leapt to dodge an impending kick. As he landed far from the three, Naruto slowly uttered their names. Lee, Neji. Reinforcement appears to have arrived. Naruto sensed a faint frown forming on his lips. There is no worse time for them. Neji came forward, determined to bring Naruto back to justice, and said, "Turn yourself in, Uzumaki." Naruto's brows went up. "Do you believe their lies? Do you?" Neji yelled, "Demons have no right to speak about lies." Naruto thought the remark was funny. When he saw Lee vanish in front of him, his scenes went crazy. A kick came from his left side, he noticed. To defend, Naruto lifted his arm. Lee delivered a forceful left kick, but to his surprise, Naruto was already positioned to block it. Lee kicked him, but Naruto grabbed it and threw him to the ground. He covered his throat with his right hand in a hurry. "Move one step and you will be visiting Lee annually at a graveyard." Kiba was about to advance when Neji intervened. "Don't." He's holding a blade somewhat near Lee's throat. Neji had his Byakugan activated when Naruto saw him. The fact that Neji could now identify his weapon was an intriguing development. Lee winced as Naruto made a slight movement with his hand, the invisible blade causing pain. Naruto gazed directly into the Hyuga's eyes and said, "Neji, that was a smart move." Naruto made his point very evident by causing some blood to spill from Lee's throat. "I will say this once more. If you come after me, Konoha will have 3 more deaths to mourn for." As the Hyuga prodigy noted, "You won't get away with this, Uzumaki. You have nowhere to run." Here, they were in control. Naruto chuckled, but not in a kind way. It was a chilly, meaningless laugh. The laugh of a no longer concerned person. "Listen to yourself. Do you think you won because I'm trapped here? I'm not known as the Silent Storm for nothing, Neji." Neji looked at him, a few seconds more. As he gave Lee more time, he needed to maintain Naruto's focus on him. Fortunately for them, Naruto was unaware of Lee's hand motions as it slowly reached for the kunai pouch. They would be able to capture the demon in a few seconds. "Make this easy on yourself, Uzumaki. Maybe the council will spare your life." Then he said, "The council members are fools. The people in the entire village are fools. I was an even bigger fool for trusting you guys. Friends, what a useless word." Neji recognized the opportunity. Naruto was too busy talking to pay attention to his hostage. A huge error. Now Lee. Lee swiftly removed Naruto's right hand before slamming the kunai into Naruto's chest, narrowly missing the heart, enlightening. Fast motion. Lee made sure the kunai was going in by pushing it in. Naruto stumbled back, startled by what Lee had done. Wiping the blood from his throat, Lee got to his feet. While Kiba and Neji watched, he said, "You lose, Naruto. I'm sorry, but this is for the greater good of the village." With a startled look on his face, Naruto gripped his wounds. Neji took a step forward. "It didn't have to be this way, Uzumaki." Naruto stumbled ahead, swaying back and forth. At last, he fell to the ground, right in front of Neji's feet. To make sure it wasn't a trap, the group moved slowly toward the body. A hand jerked up and grabbed Neji's wrist just as his hand was about to touch the body. Neji was caught off guard and attempted to shake it off, but the hold was too strong. What the hell? Neji gave Naruto's hand a basic karate chop, but the man held on tight. The head turned, revealing a smirking Naruto. "What's the matter? Stuck?" When they saw that the man was still mobile, everyone's eyes widened in shock. "By the way, Naruto says boom." When Neji saw the Naruto in front of him accumulating chakra, his eyes widened. "Run!" He yelled at his teammates, ordering them to evacuate, but it was too late. Neji's wrist was being held by Naruto when he exploded, causing a huge explosion that shook the area and damaged the entire village. Naruto got the new information from his clone in another area of the village. Those idiots seemed to have played right into his hands. Perhaps they would still be alive if they had heeded his warning. They wouldn't have expected him to be here, so Naruto glanced over his shoulder. Naruto stepped onto a patch of grass, the foundation of legends. Their everyday lives are shaped by legends and unexplainable occurrences. People here whose lives either fall to the ground or soar to the heavens. It is here that legends are created. He approached a well-known stone, the one spot where his soul was at last at peace and where he had been going for the past 5 months when his nightmares got too bad. He sighed and touched the stone. "Hello, Uruka. Sensei." Sakura and her medical staff hurried to the scene of the recent large explosion right away. Her imagination was shattered by the sight she saw when she arrived. There was nothing that made sense about this. It was unbelievable. Whatever had happened. It was now a large crater, full of nothing but rocks and overturned dirt, in place of the typical block of shops and apartment buildings. Unable to comprehend what had transpired, Ino lifted her hand to shield her mouth. Her best friend yelled, "Oh my god, Sakura," and brought Sakura back to the present. Since every minute meant losing lives, Sakura quickly straightened out her act. "Everyone quickly search the area and find me some survivors, now." The whole medical staff dispersed, looking for any survivors who might still be present. Still in disbelief over what had happened, Ino approached Sakura. "Dear Lord Sakura, what do you think happened here?" Sakura shook her head, hoping that beneath the chaos, some survivors were still alive. "I only have a couple of guesses." Naruto said, "It's been a while, Iruka Sensei," with some emotion in his voice. "I'm sorry that I haven't visited in a while." He made contact with the area where Iruka's name was inscribed. Naruto laughed to himself and said, "Things have been a bit hectic around here. It wasn't even crowded. Simply put, hectic was a nice way to describe it. Everything was flipped over and then rearranged in ways that were unrecognizable. It was simply a catastrophe." The words, "Maybe if you were here, things could have been different. Just maybe if I were a little stronger, you would have been alive. Maybe if," began to break out in Naruto's voice as tears spilled into his eyes. He dropped to his knees, shedding tears as he said, "Maybe if it was me, then this village would have been better off. For the past 20 years, this place has been his home." His thoughts strayed back to his older brother, the man he regarded as family. He recalled his older brother's death day as if it had happened yesterday. Few people have attempted to discuss it with him, but it was unsuccessful. To keep his mind from replaying the incident, Naruto kept himself occupied with work. He always made it through life, even though it was difficult. He lived his life in this manner, the only way available to him. Some leaves were carried by the wind as it blew through the area. The winds made a slight sound, as if they were attempting to communicate. That voice prompted Naruto to raise his head. The voice sounded both familiar and distant at the same time. He had not heard that person's voice in a long time. "Aniki?" He looked up, searching for the person he missed the most. When he saw no one, he lowered his head in disappointment. Ignorant of the person approaching from behind, Naruto kept sobbing, "I'm sorry I couldn't be the person you wanted me to be. I'm sorry for everything." Naruto startled the person behind him by leaping to his feet. The man's windpipes were just inches from being crushed by Naruto's hands at his throat. The fact that someone had bothered him in his special place astounded him. The one location where he felt secure. His expression changed from surprise to shock. When Naruto finally recognized the man, he asked, "Kakashi, sensei." The great copy ninja Sharingan Kakashi, a man with white hair, was in front of Naruto. For Naruto, Kakashi took the only action he could. The man gave him a hug. Naruto never experienced another hug from someone who shared his pain for the first time since Iruka's passing. All of Naruto's mental defenses were eroding, and the feelings he had suppressed since his death suddenly surfaced. Naruto sobbed on the man's shoulder, releasing the anguish he had been bearing for the previous few years. "It's okay, Naruto, it's going to be okay." The village called this man a demon, a ruthless murderer who would have been better off dead. If only they could see past their absurd pride, they would see a man who was carrying a heavy load, a man who was in pain, and a man who was innocent of all crimes. Naruto sobbed for several minutes before he dried his eyes. Just wondering why the man was here, he released his sensei. Naruto asked, "What are you doing here, Kakashi?" "Sensei." He sensed a connection between a student and a teacher that he hadn't experienced in a long time. He was taken back to his genin days, when they were just students and teachers and not a demon that the ninja in the village were hunting down. Naruto waited for the man to respond before asking, "Are you here to kill me?" "No, this place does not need any more bloodshed. This is a place for the fallen, not a place for blood. Besides, I always come here to speak to Obito as well." For the moment, Naruto relaxed, lowering his head. For a while, the two stood there, relishing the quiet. Something in the air caught Kakashi's attention. It smelled like metal. "Naruto, you should get out of here. Ninjas are coming." Naruto gave a head nod. He took one final glance at the hero's memorial stone. Naruto stated, "This is goodbye forever, Iruka Nichin," before turning and vanishing into the wind. Under his mask, Kakashi grinned. If things had gone differently, that boy would have been the greatest Hokage this village had ever had. Kakashi-san. Kakashi was startled out of his reverie by a loud voice. Kakashi wondered who else might be present and turned around. He saw some chunins with their kunais out when he turned around. Did the demon come over here? With a sigh, Kakashi approached them. So they sent chunins as well? A large Chunin, the pack leader, nodded. In a hurry, the Chunins looked around for Naruto. They have also sent out several Anbu units as well. All able ninjas are to regroup and gather by the front gate. So did the demon come this way? Kakashi cocked his head, a hint of amusement visible in his eye. The large Chunin went down with a swift left hand. The other Chunins recoiled, realizing what had just transpired. What are you doing, Kakashi-san? Kakashi asked, vanishing from view before taking out the other members of the team. I can't allow you guys to do this. I'm sorry. For the last 10 minutes, the medical team had been searching for something. It was just rubble after rubble thus far. Sakura hurried over to the man, hoping he had discovered something helpful, and exclaimed, Sakura-san, I found something. Being a field medic requires you to be ready for anything that may happen, but Sakura wasn't ready for this. She was unable to speak as her eyes widened and she quickly covered her mouth with her hands. Sakura looked shocked, and Ino saw it. To find out what had happened, she went over there. Saku. Ino also went into shock, finding it hard to comprehend what was happening. The body of a well-known and recognizable ninja was discovered by the medical team. Kiba! Exclaimed Sakura and Ino. Kiba was a different person now. His body was severely bruised and covered in burns. He would most likely have been in worse shape if it weren't for his armor. Sakura looked for a pulse in a hurry. She discovered a pulse, but it was very weak. Come on, Kiba, don't die on me here, she said. Her face went white. Kiba may not be able to make it. Everyone over here. Emergency protocol now. The Shosen no Jutsu was performed by all of the available medics. Kiba would not survive unless they operated on him now. Ino retreated until she stumbled over something. She noticed that she had stumbled over a bloody hand when she looked down. She let out a quick scream that caught everyone's attention. After swiftly clearing the debris, Ino exclaimed, I found someone else. Lee and Neji were in the same, if not worse, condition. Both of them had burns on their faces and other body parts. As Ino frantically looked for a pulse, she could feel her heart pounding more rapidly as she attempted to find various pulse positions. She yelled, they're still alive, to Sakura's attention. Because of their low pulse, they were in a critical condition. Sakura went to work on the other two while leaving the rest of the team to work on Kiba. Ino gazed at Lee and Neji's beaten bodies. Could Naruto have done this much damage? Sakura's hands turned green as she placed them over Neji's heart, signaling the beginning of the healing jutsu. Sakura, who was only concerned with saving their lives at the moment, yelled at her, it had to be Naruto. Why else would they be like this, Ino? As soon as Ino had the photo, he said about saving Lee. Tsunade turned to face the mess in front of her. People were scattered throughout the streets, and the impractical items, such as tables and chairs, were overturned. They were fortunate that Naruto used only winds to blow them away. She was fortunate that no one was seriously hurt, with the exception of the Anbu who were foolish enough to obstruct him. The elders, all with stern expressions on their faces, hurried over to her. Tsunade, did you see what that demon did? We have to quickly assemble our forces at the front gate. He will surely try to leave the village that way. Kaharu said right away. There was no telling what might occur because the demon was already at large within the village. Don't worry. My root unit is already on the job, pursuing the demon as we speak. Danzo laughed. Tsunade will soon be forced to step down, and then he will have his chance to shine. It was foolish of the third Hokage to allow that boy to survive. He couldn't remember how many times he had challenged the third about putting the boy to death, only to be told that the demon wouldn't hurt the village. He nearly wished he were still here to witness this day as he silently laughed at the third. Tsunade searched the area for a specific individual. Oh no, Jiraiya. Where have you disappeared to? Perhaps Jiraiya could bring some common sense to these elderly farts if he were present. She kept searching, but she couldn't find her former teammate. Homura interrupted, grabbing Tsunade's attention, and said, Tsunade, we're ordering all our forces to stand guard in front of the village gate. Gather everyone and go. She yelled half-heartedly. As she watched, ninjas slowly rose and followed the elders as they vanished. Shizune showed up beside Tsunade, standing beside her. Silently, Shizune questioned, do you think he's going to be okay? For his sake, he better be. Tsunade was on the verge of collapsing when Shizune grabbed her and supported her while she stood up. She helped her mentor up and they walked slowly toward the front gate. Oh Tsunade. Sama, she said. One of the best known hidden villages in history, Konoha, was in disarray. The large village was reeking of death and destruction. Fearing the release of the great demon, Kyuubi no Kitsune, both ninjas and villagers fled in terror. Their yondaime sacrificed his life to seal away the very beast. Naruto sprinted in the direction of the front gate. He would be safe if he could make it out of the village unscathed. Ninjas wouldn't dare trail him out into the open. Nobody would have thought that he would simply waltz out the front gate of the village. He had a strong suspicion that the walls were being observed. Forgetting his stealth, Naruto bounded out of another building and departed the village swiftly by using his speed. Another chakra signal was detected by Naruto, and he waited as several more swiftly approached from behind. He made the decision to flee as quickly as possible rather than engage in combat. A blur appeared beside him. Then he was propelled into a building nearby, passing through multiple walls and onto an alleyway's grounds. He cursed his bad luck. He was apprehended approximately 300 yards from the gate. When Naruto looked up, he saw who had tackled him: Sasuke. Sasuke was standing there, looking down at Naruto. He just tackled Naruto through a few walls. It couldn't have hurt him that much. "Get up, Naruto." With a growl, Naruto said, "Get out of my way, Teme." Slowly rising to Sasuke's level, Naruto said, "Or I'll go through you." A number of Junins materialized beside Naruto, encircling him entirely. With their knuckles cracked, the Junins waited for a fight to break out. Sasuke made a strong statement when he said, "You can't beat all of us, Naruto." Naruto glanced around, aware that his chances of escaping were slim. He had developed the ability to closely examine his surroundings as a result of all those missions. Missions taught him more than just that. They also taught him how to survive. Improvise and carry out when plans fail, which was 80% of the time. When Sasuke noticed Naruto's hand twitching, he swiftly removed the Kusanagi from its sheath. In an attempt to surprise Naruto, he vanished and then reappeared beside his right side. Naruto used his kunai to block right away. Metal versus metal, with both sides vying for supremacy. Both sides persisted as Naruto equaled Sasuke's strength with his own. In an attempt to help Sasuke, the other Junins hurried in. Before executing their jutsus, a number of Junins go on to create some hand seals. When Sasuke noticed the enormous fire dragon approaching, he leapt to the side. Naruto saw it coming too and jumped up, but another Junin greeted him with a drop heel kick. Naruto was aware that he was encircled and that there was no escape. He continued to dodge the Junin's barrage of kicks and punches. Sasuke was the most dangerous of the Junins, so Naruto kept one eye on him while he was busy avoiding them. Sasuke tried to disrupt Naruto's rhythm by continuously sending in and out punches. There wasn't much more he could do. Naruto was unable to flee after he was backed into a corner. He saw Sasuke above him, descending directly with the Kusanagi aimed for a vertical slash, and said, "It's over for you now, Naruto." Naruto tightened his jaw. There was little to do and only a handful of things left to do. Sasuke swiftly closed in on Naruto, but was taken aback when he saw that Naruto had deflected his blow. When Sasuke saw Naruto using his own hands to block the attack, he narrowed his eyes. Naruto quickly yanked the sword in his direction, used all of his remaining strength, and punched Sasuke in the jaw, sending him to the ground. Always so pathetic, Sasuke. Teme. Sasuke fell hard and couldn't get back up. Naruto grinned. He was fairly certain that he had broken Sasuke's jaw, but he said, "That felt so good. It made no difference. It was a wonderful feeling to receive payback." The other Junins gave a low growl, their rage evident. Their slow movements caught Naruto's attention. He bought himself some more time by taunting them, saying, "You call yourselves protectors of this village? You can't even take on one lousy guy. You are a disgrace to this village." As the nearest Junin spat out, "Oh, we'll protect something all right. We'll protect the village from the likes of you demon scum." Naruto detested their slow approach to him. He could have won if they had all run at him at once, but they were being cautious. They were more aware of Naruto's movements the slower they moved. All of the Junins suddenly charged at him, their weapons out to kill. Naruto prepared for the assault. He was free to defend himself if he could withstand this attack. He only needed to live through this assault. In the face of a group of Junins, it was easier said than done. Time seemed to be slowing down for Naruto, and his heart was racing. He cursed himself for squandering too much of his previous escape's chakra. He could feel his body suffering from the use of the chakras. Is this the end? He mentally rephrased the question. No, he was unable to give up because his mind was constantly screaming the answer. He is unable to give up. If he gave up now, they would prevail. He watched as his assailants approached him slowly, their weapons drawn and prepared to strike. Everyone froze in an instant, unable to process what had happened. They were racing toward the demon 1 second, and then their comrade fell to the ground lifeless. Naruto's gaze expanded. This is not what he did. It was someone else. Before the man passed away, he caught a glimpse of silver. His brain made a plan in a flash. Naruto challenged the men to advance, saying, "Go ahead. Take another step." He sounded icy, as if he had everything to gain and nothing to lose. Unsure of what to do, the men paused. Although it only took a moment to notice their hesitancy, Naruto needed the chance. He summoned his wind blade by directing some chakra into his right hand. He winced at the pain even though calling it came naturally to him. His hand was out to kill as he ran forward. He killed 3 and critically injured 1 in a matter of seconds. The one that was still alive caught his attention. He aimed his sword directly at the wound he had caused the man, saying, "Looks like I missed." The man writhed against the pain, pressing it lightly. "You probably think of me as a demon. Wait, no, you do think that I'm the Kyuubi, but after the events today, I would say that you guys are the ones who should be considered demons." The sword was dispelled by Naruto. The man appeared to have lost much of his will to fight. Naruto took a deep breath and said, "You look like a decent man. How would you like to bargain for your life?" As he leaned over to examine the man, his body screamed in agony, aching for a rest. At this crucial moment, that bastard fox made the decision to sever all ties with him. Fantastic. The man muttered something, but Naruto was unable to understand. He repeated his question. "What's that? I can't hear you." After taking a deep breath, the man found the right words to respond to Naruto. The man grunted in pain as he said, "I said my name is Taiyu Mashino." "Well, Taiyu-san. If you would kindly tell Tsunade and all her forces to back off, I will leave this village in peace." Taiyu, the man, chuckled. He spat blood into Naruto's face and said, "You leave this village in peace? Demons like you don't know the meaning of peace." Naruto cleaned his face of the blood. Naruto slowly lowered his hand and said, "Do a little nice thing, and this is what you get." Taiyu groaned in agony as Naruto struck the man's injured area with force. "Now, will you do it or not?" Taiyu was still laughing. The man exhaled his final breath before he passed out, saying, "Never. I might not live to see the day you die, but I know one thing. I'll see you in hell." Naruto let out a sigh. He wasn't exactly getting the results he was hoping for. He turned to face the deceased man. So arrogant, yet so foolish. They didn't question why they were doing this or that. They were like sheep being herded about by a shepherd. Humans are self-serving and manipulative by nature. He had to learn this lesson the hard way. Naruto felt a lot of pain shoot out of his body as he slowly stood up. He noticed blood leaking from his chest. When he turned around, he saw Taiyu standing there with one hand thrusting the kunai into his chest while the other clutched his wound. Taiyu chuckled. "I told you I would see you in hell. Now burn, demon." Trying to ignore the pain, Naruto gritted his teeth. He yanked the kunai out and swiftly moved away from Taiyu. He killed Taiyu instantly by thrusting the kunai into his throat. While attempting to form the hand seals for a medical jutsu, Naruto fell to the ground. He laughed inwardly. Irony prevailed. He never imagined that one day he would have to apply it to himself. Oh no, the fox. Naruto sensed a second presence in the alleyway as he agonizingly completed the hand seal and started to recover. Without interfering with his healing, he looked around. Naruto needed more time, so he said, "I know you're there. Show yourself." To at least give himself a chance, he needed to heal the wound in his right hand. "Naruto Uzumaki," the enigmatic voice murmured softly into the space, reverberating everywhere. Naruto scanned his surroundings in an attempt to identify the voice. On his right, he could hear a cloak fluttering in the wind. When he recognized the symbols on that dark cloak, he was about to be shocked. "Akatsuki," snarled Naruto. In an attempt to heal it, he transferred his left hand to his right. When he recognized the face, he was about to experience yet another surprise. With a stoic expression, the S-rank missing nin emerged from the shadows and said, "Uchiha, Itachi." Naruto swore at his bad luck. It had to be him, out of all the bloody people who might have been involved. He could never escape an Akatsuki member alive after the hell he had just experienced. "What do you want, Itachi?" As he gazed at the mess in front of him, Itachi gradually developed a smirk. "It looks like that the great Uzumaki is critically injured. There's a big bounty on your head. Did you know that, Naruto-kun?" Naruto began scooting backward, putting more distance between himself and Itachi. Slowly, Itachi's smirk turned back into his expressionless face. From beneath his cloak, he pulled out a blade. Naruto gazed at Uchiha Itachi, the man who had single-handedly wiped out the Uchiha clan in a single night. Itachi slowly walked up to the former captain, displaying the blade in all its splendor. With one eye fixed on Itachi and the other on the healing process, Naruto said, "If you're here to kill me, Itachi, then wait in line. I got a whole list to go through before you get your turn." He reminded himself to give it a few more minutes. He can at least try to defend himself if he has a few more minutes. Raising his sword, Itachi rushed forward. Shit, Naruto was pushed into a corner when he noticed Itachi sprinting forward. Raising his arms to block the oncoming attack and praying was the only thing Naruto could do. He felt nothing as he waited for the attack. He was aware that Itachi ought to have arrived at his location by now, but where was the pain and blood? Naruto lowered his arms slowly and peered around. In front of him, he noticed Itachi brandishing a blood-stained sword. After checking his body, he concluded that it wasn't his blood and that Itachi wasn't foolish enough to stab himself. He spun around when he heard a thud behind him. A corpse fell to the ground. Surprisingly, Naruto turned around to discover that someone was concealed there. Then he discovered that a genjutsu applied to the area was the reason he missed the man. Leaning steadily against the wall, Naruto slowly raised himself up and watched the missing nin as he carefully put the sword away. "I should kill you for just being here, Itachi." Itachi gave a little laugh. With a number of villagers currently fleeing to safety, Itachi pointed his fingers outside the alleyway and asked, "Do you really think that if you kill me here, Naruto-kun, they would take you back? Why would you go back to a village where they hate you and scorn you like a plague? There is much you don't know about Konoha, Naruto-kun. I came here to offer you a deal." There were no other options left for Naruto to consider, so his curiosity was piqued. "A deal? What kind of deal?" "We would like it if you would join our ranks, Naruto-kun." Naruto gave a headshake. "No way. You guys are wanted for a reason. I will not join the likes of you." The expression on Itachi's face was as inquisitive as it could get. "Please enlighten me as to what those reasons might be." "For one thing, you guys murder in cold blood for power with no regard to anything or anyone as long as you get it," quickly responded Naruto. Itachi chuckled. Then Itachi considered another possibility. "You have turned into a naive man, Naruto-kun. How about this then? Follow me outside the village and hear the real truth about the village before deciding if you want to join us or not." A catch had to exist. "A catch is always present." Naruto grinned. "And if I decide not to?" Itachi gave a shrug. "You can walk away free and then the next time we meet, we will be as enemies and not allies." Naruto considered this offer. He had a lot to gain and nothing to lose. To complete the transaction, Naruto extended his hand and said, "Fine." Itachi gave Naruto's gesture a curious glance before extending his own hand. Naruto took hold of it and trembled. "So let's leave." Itachi gave a headshake. Itachi retreated into the shadows and vanished after saying, "The deal was that you had to get out. I won't help you. If you can't get out of here alive, then you don't deserve to know." Naruto's mouth dropped slightly. He was duped like a fool. He silently cursed the Uchiha, saying, "Damn it, Itachi. He will strangle the fucking man the next time he sees him." Naruto hanged into a fellow leaf chunin and shaped his hands into a simple seal. Chunins would go unnoticed. They couldn't be identified because they were too far down the power chain. He swiftly joins his fellow chunins as he scuttles out of the alleyway and onto the rooftop. He grinned to himself. He only needed to conserve his chakra and make it to the gate, so this wasn't the best plan. He joined a group of chunins who were rushing to the gate as well. Naruto turned to face them and met their gaze. In an attempt to fit in, he gradually joined their formation. "Did you find the demon?" inquired a contemporaries. Naruto gave a headshake. Naruto angrily retorted, "No, the bastard fled before I could find him." Becoming like the enemy is the first step to becoming like them. Don't overreact on your part or give them too much information. Simply be mediocre and watch how other people react. Naruto's eyes widened. He had not just heard that. "Don't worry. We'll get him in the front gate. Everyone's there, even the Hokage." He was unable to conceal anything from Tsunade, so the plan only became more intricate. Perhaps he could sneak up on them and she wouldn't notice. To himself, Naruto chuckled. Tsunade won't notice, for example. She was the one who initially sentenced him to this. To get Naruto to stop thinking, a chunin asked, "What's your name?" He swiftly used the name of the man he had just killed, Taiyu Mashino. Naruto nodded rapidly as the group hurried to the front gate, saying, "Great to have you on board, Taiyu-san." An Anbu approached her and said, "Tsunade-sama, our forces are all here." Tsunade nodded her head and hurriedly looked around, anticipating Naruto. "Good job." Ninjas of all ranks, including chunins, junins, and Anbu, gathered by the front gate in the following moments. This was the biggest ninja gathering since the Third Shinobi War. A Junin sneered, "Let's see if the demon can get through us all." The others laughed along with them. Danzo moved forward and signaled for everyone to stop talking with a raised hand. Danzo indicated the area where the ambush team should go hide and await his signal, while the front assault team would remain in their positions. "We will deploy the forces into two groups, the front assault, the ambush team." As she watched her power elude her, Tsunade shook her head, feeling her heart break. Then she noticed some Chunins approaching them swiftly. They met their Hokage when they got there. Tsunade half-heartedly replied, "Greetings, Hokage Sama," and indicated that they were the front assault team. Naruto looked around. The number of ninjas was lower than he had anticipated. "You there?" Naruto turned around to see Danzo standing there. "I want you over there now." In an alert but an interesting tone, Naruto said, "Yes sir," demonstrating to the man that he was a novice Chunin. Naruto kept telling himself, just a little longer. He couldn't kill Danzo yet, even though he was directly in front of him. No, he intended to cause that man to endure 1,000 deaths before he passed away. Naruto's thoughts kept returning to his brief conversation with Itachi. Even if it means creating fictitious alliances, the adversaries will stop at nothing to protect themselves. During his Anbu training, he was taught that rule first. Don't trust anything the enemy says. Never fail to look beneath the surface. His mind reverberated with Kakashi's voice. What if Itachi's reasoning was correct? Naruto shook himself slowly out of his reverie. Now, while the enemy is still organizing, is the time to take action. Casually, Naruto moved to the back, slipping behind the front line. "Hey Taiyu-san, where you running off to?" Naruto stopped walking. Goddamn the Chunin's arrogance. Like any other Chunin would if he were caught, Naruto turned around and rubbed his head nonchalantly. He shrugged and carried on, saying, "They told me to stand in the back." Go figure. He was about to back away when he sensed a hand gripping his wrist. Homura grabbed his wrist and said, "Hold on there." He gave the Chunin a suspicious look and asked, "What did you say your name was?" Naruto grinned. He said, "Taiyu Mashino." With ease and without hesitation. The enemy could tell you're lying right away if you hesitated. The elder must be aware of him. "I see. So how are your wife and kids?" Although he is in the midst of a conflict zone, he could kill him here. Not a smart move. Naruto replied, "I'm not married, elder Sama." It was a risky response because he didn't see any indication of a ring on the man's finger prior to his death. "I like bachelorhood too much to get myself married." Homura gave a nod. He walked back to Danzo after releasing Naruto's wrist. Naruto paused at the rear and observed the man conversing with Danzo. He took care to avoid making more eye contact because that would indicate guilt. Although he could see Homura conversing with Danzo informally, his gut told him otherwise. Danzo gave him a quick glance before averting his eyes. "Shit, I think my cover was blown." Naruto frantically searched for a way out. He had an idea. He could henge into something else, something smaller, if he could move in the direction of the door. Naruto began to move away once more, but he made the decision to do so from the front of the line this time. Carefully buying his time, Naruto slipped into an empty building. He whispered his signature technique and did a few simple hand seals. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Out of the smoke came a smiling Naruto clone. "Distraction, right boss?" With a nod, the authentic Naruto gestured toward the rear entrance. The clone took the hint and hurried away. Naruto retreated to the entrance and bided his time until the signal arrived for his clone to finally make his spectacular debut. "Look, there's the demon," he exclaimed as he sensed the movements and heard some cries outside. He hurried outside and joined the pursuit. "I hope he can get away by slipping behind their forces." Naruto observed his clone chasing him in circles while he watched from behind. He reduced his speed so that ninjas could go by him and he could be close to the end. He came to a halt and turned around upon realizing that he was among the final ninjas. But he ignored everything else. He hurried back toward the front gate. Naruto was taken aback when he arrived. Danzo and the majority of the Root Anbu unit were standing there. "Greetings, Uzumaki." Danzo greeted his victim icily. With his gaze fixed on the figure before him, Naruto let out a little growl. As Naruto gazed at the man, he could feel his hands pleading to be freed, wanting nothing more than to rip him to pieces. "Get out of my way, Danzo." With his feet scuffing the floor, Naruto moved slowly. He was careful not to move too much. If you move too little, it would give the enemy an excuse to attack. If you move too much, it would show that you were afraid. As he looked around, he saw that Root members were observing everything he did. Naruto's eyes were moving around a lot, and Danzo grinned. Let me tell you something, demon. There is no way that you can escape from this place alive. I suspected that you might pull a trick like this, so I made sure that all possible escape routes were covered. Danzo lightly tapped his cane. There is nowhere else to hide. I will finally do what the third could never do, and that is to kill you. Naruto sensed his body getting ready for combat on its own. His muscles were starting to tense up against one another, preparing for battle at any second. For the first time, he realized his fate. The goal was to punish those who had wronged him, not to become the village's new king. He was brought up to fight, and he will always be engaged in combat. This primal fighting instinct will always be a part of him, no matter where he goes. He slipped into an odd fighting stance and lifted his arms. I'm leaving this village one way or another, and I'm intending to leave it alive. Danzo's smirk transformed into a ruthless grin. Every member of Root threw kunais and shurikens at Naruto without any prior notice. Look around you. You are surrounded by my Root. They're the best of the best, far superior than your average Anbu. The Root leader watched the battle intently while standing there in silence. A few seconds later, he saw the body completely scarred. He shook his head in disappointment at the Kyuubi's display of skill. There was real reason to be afraid of the demon. It was said to be the Biju's strongest. An honorable name to be listed among the legends. I thought the mighty Kyuubi no Kitsune would have put up a better fight than this. Danzo was still uneasy even after the battle was over. This seems far too simple. Although it shouldn't have been this simple to kill someone of his caliber, the man in front of him was impaled by so many weapons that no one could have survived. But it was unfortunate. None of this would have occurred if the third had permitted him to take the boy as he desired. He disagreed with Konoha on a number of issues, but attempting to alter the past was pointless. Rather than lamenting it, one can take charge of the future, and now is the moment to finally receive what he is due. I told you that I would be leaving this hellhole alive. Danzo's eyes were stunned as he gazed at the bloody mess in front of him. This man was still standing here, talking to them, even though no one could have survived that. There was no way for anyone to defend themselves because the weapons were coming from all sides. He could only have survived if he had been aware of the Hyuga's final line of defense. He stumbled out, "What the hell are you?" With a single smile, Naruto vanished into thin air, leaving the Root leader even more stunned. Naruto's voice reverberated throughout the area, "I am the Silent Storm, and I am your worst nightmare." As everyone searched the area for potential hiding places, silence fell. One Root member managed to make the sound, "Ga." Before passing out. His esteemed Root's members soon started to fall out like flies. As he watched helplessly as one by one of his men fell to the ground, Danzo began to panic. This isn't possible, Danzo thought frantically. Here, he was meant to be in the lead. There could be nothing wrong with his plans. He couldn't possibly have miscalculated this. As his entire plan failed in front of him, he kept watching in horror. His soldiers were surrounded by flashes of yellow that moved quickly. The majority of his soldiers were dead and on the ground in a matter of minutes. As he kept looking for Naruto, Danzo swore, "Damn you, demon." The voice reverberated throughout the area, making it impossible to locate Naruto. You're probably wondering what's going to happen to you next. Don't worry, I will tell you. The Shinigami is coming. Why don't you plead for your pitiful life, Danzo? Calmly, Danzo answered, "It is not my life that I should be worrying about. They will be coming back any moment now once they realize that the Naruto they're chasing is a cage bushin." Abruptly, a kunai flew in Danzo's direction and lodged itself in his left shoulder. He gritted his teeth to contain his screams as he winced from the pain. Experience taught him that displaying any emotion to the enemy was a sign of weakness. He was unable to afford it in this place. Naruto said again, his voice devoid of emotion, "Then I guess I better finish this now." Danzo was struck by another kunai, but this time it wasn't directed at his upper body. Danzo's right ankle's tendons were severed when the kunai struck him close to the leg. Unable to hold himself up with one leg, Danzo fell to the ground. Danzo's left ankle's other tendon was severed by another kunai that flew in his direction, making it impossible for the bold Root leader to escape. The older man shouted, "Just kill me and get this over with already." During the Second Shinobi War, he already lost his right eye and arm. The Kyuubi attack had claimed the lives of his wife and child. Right now, he could lose nothing else in his life. When Naruto finally met Danzo face, he said, "No, I don't want you dead. Yet. Death would be the easy way out. I want you to suffer the pain you caused me. The pain that can't be healed." Naruto pushed the kunai in a bit more, making Danzo stifle his scream of pain. "I told you that I would make you regret." Danzo was gasping for air and hardly surviving the agony. I'll get you, demon, I'll get you if that's the last thing I do. Naruto's icy gaze was fixed on the man, looking directly into Danzo's face. He started quickly performing a series of hand seals before saying, I highly doubt that, but for showing me the reality of who I am going to show you an original technique as my going away present. As he watched Naruto complete the hand seals, Danzo's eyes grew wide. His right hand started to glow more intensely than any fire jutsu he had ever seen. The heat emanating from Naruto's hand was palpable to Danzo. As he watched Naruto get closer and closer, he finally managed to say, Demon. Naruto muttered the name of the jutsu, Sinaru Kaki. He learned the uncommon skill of holy fire during his missions. He discovered it on a scroll intended for this specific clan's members to view. How ironic. A demon employing a sacred method. The world must be ending. Naruto chuckled to himself in his head. He never in a million years imagined that Danzo would be the first to see this technique. Consider yourself lucky, Danzo. Chan. Naruto purposefully added the suffix. Grinning at the effects of the jutsu, Naruto reached out and grabbed Danzo by the neck, saying, You will be the first to see this technique and you will live to tell about it. From every corner of the village, a man's screams could be heard. The scream was tortured and monstrous. If anyone had seen what actually transpired there, they would have had lifelong nightmares. As the man faded into unconsciousness, Danzo hardly heard the words, Never forget, Danzo. Chan, never forget. A Chunin yelled, Did you hear that scream, Hokage? Sama? It sounded almost inhuman. The scream made him shudder. It sounded really vicious. Tsunade froze, attempting to make sense of what she had just heard. Then it dawned on her. She turned around in a moment, and the Naruto they were pursuing vanished into thin air. Tsunade shouted, Quickly, everyone turn around now. Instead, after focusing some more chakra on her feet, she left everyone behind and started to fly in the other direction. She vaguely remembered what had transpired back there as she jumped between buildings. Based on that scream, Naruto was most likely dead after a fight with some idiot. Tsunade's stomach twisted at the sight she saw when she returned to the front gate. Blood was rotting, and the smell was overwhelming. She would have puked from what she saw in front of him if she hadn't been a field medic before. Numerous ninjas were dead and sprawled on the ground. As soon as she saw the lone figure lying in the middle of the road, her eyes immediately led her farther down the road. Danzo. Tsunade saw that the man's body was trembling violently and hurried over to him. She flipped his body over and shook her head. Even though she detested this man, she can't bear to let him pass away. She was a medic first and foremost, and the first rule of a medic is to always treat patients before questioning them. Enemy and ally alike receive the same treatment while a patient is in the hospital. Instead of inciting conflict, a hospital should be used to treat the injured and provide a place for people to make amends. She was relieved to discover that the man's heart was still beating. Her gaze followed his battered body, taking in the massive burn scar near his throat. She whispered, Dear Lord, to herself. She looked at his neck and asked, Who could have done such a thing? The severe burns would undoubtedly be a reminder to him for the rest of his life. Hokage. Sama. Come take a look at this. Tsunade's gaze shifted to the one who was calling. She approached the ninja who had fallen. She bowed her head, allowing herself a moment of quiet to honor the deceased. May his soul rest in peace. These wounds, Hokage. Sama. They were all done to the throat. Poor guys, they were probably dead before they even knew it. Very precise work too. Tsunade examined the ninja's lethal wound more closely. It is clear that the person who caused the injuries was skilled. She noticed a pattern as she glanced at the other ninjas. Danzo himself was lying here, and every person who perished was a root member. Not even you deserve this, she said, turning to face the unconscious man, as she began to leave, reflecting on the harm caused by this one individual. It hurt too much to acknowledge that she now knew who could have done this. Only one man, who had the potential to become the next Hokage but was prevented from doing so by fate, could have wreaked such havoc. What have you done, Naruto Uzumaki? An Anbu materialized next to her, awaiting her commands. Hokage. Sama. We spotted the demon up ahead and will proceed to give chase. Tsunade gave a headshake. Cancel that order. They were not in a good position. It would damage Konoha's reputation and encourage other villages to attack them in their already vulnerable state if word spread that one of their own ninja had rendered the village disabled. In an attempt to preserve what little hope remained, Tsunade yelled, Have everyone regroup. Bring everyone that you could find to the hospital. If they are still breathing, I want them there now. After pasting the front gate, Naruto paused to admire its beauty and significance. He had vivid memories of this gate. It was here that some inebriated villagers beat him for the first time as a child. As he went outside, he inhaled deeply. In some way, he felt as though a heavy burden had been lifted off his chest. His prison that tormented him during his days out was no longer his home. Now it was only a memory. Naruto held out his palms in a Rasengan, saying, "The next time I'm back Konoha, it's going to be a bang." Rasengan. He flung his palms directly into the wooden gate, shattering it into splinters. The gate was completely destroyed by the fierce assault. Only the faint remnants of the once proud, tall gate remained. With a final glance, the man who had no childhood and who endured daily beatings from the villagers vanished into the vast forest, never to be seen again. I hope they enjoy the new look. After an hour in an attempt to put enough distance between himself and the village, Naruto moved quickly on foot. Once they were organized, they would undoubtedly be sending hunter nins after him. He was aware of their mission and knew he wouldn't be around to see it through to completion. Naruto saw something strange as he leapt from one tree to the next. He thought he was repeating himself. It was beyond question. Even though he sensed a change, he was unable to ignore this false sensation. He landed close to a bush because he wanted to do a more complete check, but when he put his hand close to the bush, it went through it, showing that he was in a genjutsu. When was I trapped in this genjutsu? Scowled Naruto. I couldn't even find one. He thought back to one of Ero Sennin's first lessons. The Sannin's voice reverberated in his mind. Overloading and disrupting the chakra flow is the easiest way to break out of a genjutsu. Shutting his eyes, he started the procedure. Massive amounts of chakra burst from him at irregular intervals over the course of minutes. Naruto's surroundings were entirely different when he opened his eyes. When he sensed another presence behind him, his senses went into overdrive. Speaking, Itachi emerged from the trees, his cloak billowing softly in the wind, and said, "I am glad to see that you are still in one piece. You're late." "There were some issues that I had to resolve before leaving the village," Naruto said, giving the man a stern look. Itachi said, "You could have left him for another time." Wondering how he could have known what had happened, Naruto squinted. Upon realizing that Itachi never truly left the village, but instead remained to observe his activities from a distance, his eyes widened a little. "You don't trust me?" Knowing that Naruto had already figured it out, Itachi shrugged. "Think of it as a safety measure." Naruto let out a sigh. Speaking with this man was similar to speaking with Guy. They were both as queer as they were strong. The only times they were normal were when circumstances demanded it. Naruto said, "I'm here about that deal, Itachi." Without saying another word, Itachi turned around and continued walking into the woods, saying, "Of course, follow me." Wondering why the missing dot nin was being so helpful, Naruto gazed at him. Itachi called over his shoulder, "Are you coming? We can talk about it in a more secure location." After observing Itachi's retreating figure, Naruto followed him, his eyes scanning the area for any potential danger. The Uchiha said, "Sit." Naruto surveyed the area, examining the camp slowly. He looked around for any hidden weapons or traps. His past experiences had taught him not to place all of his trust in one person, not because he didn't trust Itachi. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted by Itachi, who said, "Make yourself comfortable, Naruto-kun." Naruto interrupted, saying, "Enough of the small talk, Itachi. There was only one reason he was here. To learn what Itachi was aware of. I want that information." I held up my end of the bargain. "Now it's time to tell me what you know." Itachi remarked, "I see subtlety isn't one of your strong points. Did you seriously believe that by serving the council, they would respect you? You live in that dream world where you actually thought respect comes from the things that you done. It's time to wake up. You will always be the Kyuubi no Kitsune to them. Uzumaki Naruto never existed." Naruto snarled. "Tell me something that I don't already know. Get to your point. Tell me, how corrupted do you think the village is?" Itachi glared. Naruto gave a shrug. "At this point, I don't really care how corrupted in their filth they are. They could kill each in broad daylight and I wouldn't give a damn. It would save me the hassle of doing it myself." Itachi sighed. "Humor me. If you didn't hate them, just tell me how corrupted it is." Naruto shrugged, showing little concern. He responded cynically, "Fine. Maybe there's some corruption in power." At his answer, Itachi nodded and raised an eyebrow. "Now my next question to you is, why do they want you dead?" He held up a finger, saying, "You are only half right." Naruto replied icily, "I'm the bloody freaking Kyuubi. I think that says enough." Itachi was asking questions that had no bearing on his cause, and he was getting impatient. Itachi gave his response a nod of approval. "When the council couldn't turn you into a weapon, you became a liability for them. You became a danger to everything they stand for. They detested your existence. They were afraid of you, afraid of whom you are, afraid of what you are. When they couldn't turn you into their weapon, they had to terminate you. They couldn't let a loose cannon wander around. Why don't you tell me something that I don't already know? If this is all to your secret, Itachi, then I'm leaving. Itachi said softly. Do you remember the Uchiha massacre? He had never discussed this subject with an outsider before, but the time had come to tell the tale. Naruto swiftly shifted his focus to Itachi and glared at him with a deadly intensity. Unfazed by the glare, Itachi sat there and said, I'll take it as a yes. The look he got did not surprise him. Now that his younger brother was back in the village, Sasuke served as a living, breathing reminder of what had happened that night. Naruto jumped out of his chair and put his hand on Itachi's throat, saying, It was because of what you did that Sasuke turned out like this. Itachi's eyes turned from blue to a fiery red as Naruto slammed him into a tree. Naruto's intent to kill began to flow out of him like a faucet. Itachi looked into Naruto's eyes and fought against his hold. Naruto seemed to be gazing into his soul and waiting for him to pass away so he could consume it. It was you. Naruto muttered icily. That set forth the chain of events that forever changed Konoha. Itachi could feel the pressure building around his throat. He never imagined Naruto to be this way, but he assumed he would act sensibly. The attack took him completely by surprise. He took the only action that could have made anyone feel better. Show the proof. He extracted a scroll from behind his back. Without letting go of the Uchiha, Naruto took the scroll from Itachi and used his left hand to open it, saying, Read it and then you will understand. He identified the scroll as belonging to Sarutobi, the former third Hokage, and it was a personal scroll. Naruto's eyes grew wide as he navigated from top to bottom through the scroll. The content that was written on it astounded him. All of it must have been lies. His hand began to shake. No. The news was shaking him from head to toe. He dropped the scroll and Itachi then collapsed to his knees. Itachi, relieved to be out of the man's clutches, rubbed his throat. Do you understand now? We, the mighty Uchiha clan, was one of the most corrupted clans to have ever lived in Konoha. Bribery, assassination, anything you can name, we did it. We were the backbone of the Konoha police force. Who would dare to stand against us? We had the power to conquer Konoha if we so desired it. They were your family, Naruto exclaimed, still in shock. It contradicted everything he had learned and understood. The Sandaime could not have ordered the execution of the entire Uchiha clan. The good-hearted old man who sacrificed his life to keep the village and its residents safe. In an attempt to relax, Naruto closed his eyes. Why would he order something like this? He cared for everyone in this village like his own family. The Sandaime realized that a number of clans were being corrupted from within Konoha. If a plant developed a bad root, you would cut it off before it spreads, to keep the plant normal. In this case, I did exactly the same thing. Silently, Naruto questioned, Do you feel no remorse from your actions? He didn't give Itachi a glance. He simply gazed at the floor, frantically trying to think of other reasons. Itachi gave a headshake. The order was given and it was clear that there couldn't be any survivors. And Sasuke? There had to be someone left that can carry this burden and to come after me for the sins that I have committed. I have chosen Sasuke for this task. At last, Naruto raised his head, his eyes reverting to their natural hue. The room fell silent as neither man could think of anything to say to the other. Itachi, attempting to display some emotion but failing miserably, said, You're just like me. We gave everything to serve Konoha and in the end, we were just a mindless soldier who did as they were told but were cast aside when we were no longer needed. Naruto kept his hands clenched to the floor and never looked up. I'm nothing like you, Itachi. I'm sure of that. Could he have been another Itachi? There were undoubtedly some parallels, but he was unique, he must be. Itachi stepped back and vanished into the forest's darkness, saying, I see. I will take my leave but remember, the next time we meet, it will be as enemies. Naruto screamed into the air, Arg! Because he was desperate to release the pain. In an attempt to escape the loud roar, birds flew away from the area. Tsunade tried to stop herself from slashing out at the table by holding onto it with her bare hands. They began this meeting 2 hours ago, and they haven't made any progress at all. She screamed, It is not his fault for the last time. These folks were not moving a single inch. She spent hours trying to persuade them that Naruto wasn't to blame. Tsunade. Sama. With all due respect, the demon almost killed Danzo. Wipe out about 20% of our forces, and caused the deaths of many civilians. How can we just let that slide? A senior citizen spoke up. Tsunade gave a frustrated growl. They kept saying the same thing over and over again, but in different words. I wish there had been some indication. Anything would be acceptable. Yoheim. She saw who was peeking inside after hearing the door open. Talk about the devil. He'll be fine. Jiraiya. Tsunade gave him permission to enter the room by nodding her head. Around the room, several elderly people gasped. You have the audacity to show your face in our presence after what you did. We should hang you for treason, warned Kaharu. The woman threatened, but Jiraiya ignored her. Her threats were childish in comparison to the much more serious ones he received. You have no control over me. I may be a ninja under the name of Konoha due to my contract, but nowhere in there does it state that I have to take orders from a group of ignorant fools. He said to the council. I am Jiraiya of the legendary Sannin, the title given to me by Hanzo himself. A fierce glare was exchanged between the two sides. Jiraiya boasted that he wasn't scared of them and that, I would have let you guys die in cold blood if I had the chance. These individuals have become inebriated with power after tasting its euphoric essence. Simply put, they are no longer qualified to serve on the council. Then Tsunade called, Jiraiya. He was exacerbating the already dire situation. Jiraiya rubbed his chin and reflected on his former students. If my student wanted, you guys would have been 10 feet under a long time ago. I truly trained quite a few monsters. They really were a piece of art. Jiraiya. Tsunade's voice went up a bit. If I had my way, all of you would be. Tsunade yelled, Jiraiya, and slammed her hands against the table. Yes. Jiraiya gave her a startled look. While he was bragging about his accomplishments, he had forgotten that he was in the same room as her. Clearing her throat, she said, getting back to business. Here, something had to be done. The council will become more powerful than the Hokage itself if she doesn't take immediate action because the balance of power has already changed. Homura said, we have decided to put Uzumaki into the bingo books. He is too dangerous to be left free. She took out some papers and prepared to write down the basic information. Okay, rank a missing.nin. Hiyoshi's voice said, rank SS. Tsunade and Jiraiya both looked up, wondering if they had heard correctly. Rank SS. Stumbled Tsunade. Are you insane? Knowing it was his turn to explain the choice, Hishi got to his feet. Other people began to support Hiyoshi's idea, saying, he is classified as both a cage-level ninja and he also has the Kyuubi in him, the strongest of all demons. He deserves the rank of SS. He is better to us dead than alive. Tsunade calmly replied, no. Jiraiya began to slowly applaud, saying, I refuse to do it. She folded her arms as she concluded her speech, glaring at each member. I am the Hokage of this village and I do not see him as a threat. You have elected me as Hokage, to serve and protect this village and I will continue to do it until the day I die, she said. During the speech, Jiraiya stood up and gave loud applause. I don't think you understand the situation, Tsunade. Sama. We are in a time of crisis, which means that your power and our power are one and the same. During this time, we will vote and decide on important issues that concerns itself with the village. This time, Kaharu spoke up. Clan leaders began to rise one by one, saying, all in favor of the decision, please stand up. Tsunade gazed incredulously at each of them. Why? Naruto was friends with your children. He would never harm a single hair on them. It is because of that reason why we decided to do it, Hokage. Sama. Inoichi said softly. We have children that we want to protect, the children that we want to see succeed us. They are our future and we must protect it for their sake. Prior to Tsunade opening her mouth, Shikaku interrupted her, saying, Inoichi is right. We're sorry, Tsunade. Sama, but it is only for the best. These people are unbearable. They are stubborn old fools who are too scared to abandon the old ways. Tsunade felt her rage about to explode. The table cracked slightly as she slammed her fist down on it. Tsunade left them to consider it after saying, fine. Do what you want with his ranking, but know this, I will not be held responsible for whatever ninjas you send after him. Naruto began to feel tears streaming down his face for the second time today. He sniffed, I will never be manipulated again. From this day forward, the world and everything else in it is dead to me. He took deep breaths and slowly stood up. He called forth his blade of wind and scratched out the leaf symbol on his Hite.8, declaring, from this day forward, I will never be a Konoha ninja again. He tied the Hite.8 to his arm and said, May Kami. Sama have mercy on the souls of those Konoha ninjas. He walked slowly away and vanished into the forest, saying, because they will be as good as dead. Tsunade buried her head in her arms, her heart exploding. What am I going to do, Jiraiya? I just marked Naruto for death. Rank SS? That's just like saying, kill me now. I trained at Gakiheim. Don't worry, if anyone could survive this, it's that kid. Tsunade whispered to herself, like you keep your eye on those hot springs I bet. Jiraiya chuckled. Jiraiya opened the window and leapt away, leaving the Hokage to gather her thoughts. See what you can do. I'm going to start looking for him now. Tsunade is disturbed when a knock on the door occurs. She yelled, what the hell is it now? This did not suit her mood. The hesitant Chunin replied, the new bingo book Hokage. Sama. She took it right away and began turning the pages until she found the name she was seeking. When she read the rank, her eyes grew wide. So those bastards actually went through with it. The Chunin was still standing there when she looked up. The Chunin hurried out of the room, terrified by all the rumors about the Hokage, saying, what the hell are you waiting for? Get out of my sight. The greatest medics in Konoha, as well as the legendary Tsunade, the slug princess who can smash mountains with her bare hands. Getting on her bad side was a death wish. Undoubtedly frightened, Tsunade watched as the Chunin fled the room. Shizune! Get in here! Cried the already enraged woman. Knowing what was torturing her, Shizune went in right away. Shizune nodded her head as she took notes, writing down the message, take this down. I want a team of trackers to go after Naruto immediately. I want to hear his side of the story. He is to be approached unharmed. Get me Kiba Inuzuka, Neji Hyuga and Shino Aburame. 2 out of the 3 are currently unavailable. Tsunade, Sama. Tsunade's voice rose. Why not? This place was collapsing. God, she missed her days of gambling. The times when she was more concerned with debt collectors than with the lives of others. Kiba and Neji are currently stated to be in critical condition from fighting with Naruto. Tsunade's eyebrow went up. At the same time, yes, this was an intriguing response. Just now, Naruto simultaneously defeated 2 of her strongest Junin. Get me Hitaki Kakashi and Hinata Hyuga. Shizune nodded her head, indicating that they were available, as she perused her list. Knowing that Tsunade would be furious if things weren't done around here, Shizune rushed out of the room and said, get to it, I want him found ASAP. Things are going accordingly to plan. Grinning, a dark figure rose from the chair, and Danzo? The ninja paused, then went on. It looks like Naruto crippled him and his root unit before leaving Konoha. The man sighed. The news wasn't good. The next step required Danzo. That Jinchuriki, damn it. He turned into a wild card that should not be taken lightly. No matter. The wheels of fate is already turning. It is only a matter of time before Konoha crumbles under my power. The man began to chuckle. This laugh was more sinister and devilish than the typical evil laugh of most villains. Well, what are you waiting for, Sasuke? Get out of my sight. After bowing, Sasuke said, as you wish, Shinrei. Sama. Shinrei observed the retreating figure of his apprentice. He began to laugh once more before leaving the room, saying, Orochimaru was a fool to let you go. If it is power that you want, Sasuke, you better be careful for what you wish for. All right, brat. You ought to have paid attention to me. I told you that people were stupid and greedy, didn't I? A deep, gruff voice reverberated in Naruto's head. All of you humans are just too pathetic, but it doesn't matter anymore. The ends will justify the means. Only the weak needs to rely on people. The strong only depends on themselves. The voice in Naruto's head made him frown. You dare to give me a lecture now? When I was being ambushed by the village, where were you? That moment when the demon left him is still fresh in his mind. I apologize. As we waltzed out of the village, did you want me to hold your hand? You always have complete access to my chakra, in case you forgot. Quit complaining. I didn't teach you to complain. The voice was beating harder and louder inside Naruto's head. Enough evangelizing, Kyuubi. I need somewhere to hide out for a bit. Have any suggestions? The voice laughed. I hope you like hot spots. The young Kazekage was lounging in his office when a gentle breeze blew through the windows. The sweltering mid-afternoons were always a relief from the night. He was sitting in his office, looking at his rough hands. For the past few days, he has been contemplating the crucial question in the same way. Something caught his attention when he looked at the wall. Mounted calendar. It was his first day as Kazekage, and today was the anniversary of that day. He still harbored doubts after all these years. Gaara leaned back in his chair and sighed. Was becoming a village Kage really worth it? He had lost his knowledge. Did he really believe that he would no longer be feared by everyone after he became the Kazekage? Who was he joking with? Naturally, some people would continue to view him as a monster, but others who did so in the past had since changed their minds. Did their opinions change because they were afraid of him, or did they actually change their minds? He was afraid of his power. He simply lost his knowledge. Only because of Baki did he accept this position. Rewind. Why is it so important that you would risk your life to become Hokage? The man beside him said nothing. In the past, when people have asked him, he has always responded with the same response. I want to be Hokage because it would mean acknowledgement. The two men were playing shogi while sitting beneath a shade tree. As it happened, they both enjoyed playing shogi in their free time. Shogi gave them a chance to escape reality and forget about the issues they were dealing with all the time. Neither of them spoke again for a long time. We're different from most people, Gaara. We have been through too much hatred to give up now. By becoming Hokage of our respectful villages, it would show these narrow-minded villagers that we are no different from them. We are every bit human as they are. The man said as he raised a piece. Your move. Gazing at the board, Gaara considered his next course of action. He could win the match by moving this piece over there, but this opponent wasn't your average person. He was a creature like that. Uzumaki Naruto. He had the utmost regard for him. Gaara considered his options and pondered whether this was the best course of action. He chose to take a chance. Do or die was the choice. There's no going back now. Sitting there, Naruto observed Gaara fall for his ruse. He heard the young Kage say, check. The game ended when Naruto moved the piece before into a new position, saying, watch the way people move, Gaara. There is always an ulterior motive, Gaara. Remember that. Check and mate. Gaara gazed at the youth in front of him. He could feel himself laughing a little. You are a strange one indeed, Naruto. End of flashback. The last time they spoke was quite some time ago. He has no time to leave the country, much less visit those who hold special meaning for him, due to his responsibilities as Kage. He was on a diplomatic trip to Konoha a year ago, which was his most recent visit. A chilly voice said, hello, Gaara. The cloak fluttered in the wind, effectively concealing the wearer's features. With his sand already moving in the direction of the intruder, Gaara instantly flipped his chair around. He squinted, attempting to identify his attacker. Later, Cripple asks questions. He's always done it that way. With the intention of crushing his midnight guest, he lifted his left hand and ordered the sand to envelop him. I'm hurt that you don't remember me. As the figure slipped away, avoiding his sand, Gaara thought, he's fast. He was shocked to see the individual standing in the light, exposing himself, when he turned his head around. He didn't recognize his intruder for a few seconds. He was easily recognized. There weren't many people with blonde hair that he knew. Naruto appeared while Temari was on her way to Konoha to see her sorry excuse of a boyfriend. The Kagekazi lowered his sand and asked, why are you here? Ninjas rarely appeared in his office without warning. Shouldn't you be in Konoha doing guard duty or something? Naruto replied icily, I no longer have respect for those fools. They can rot in their own filth. Gaara saw that his friend's tone had changed. It had a more aloof sound, as though it were trying to hide something. If Naruto appeared in his office at midnight without any explanation, then something serious must have happened. Additionally, Gaara noticed a change in Naruto's expression. Only when the topic of Konoha was brought up did his face display emotion again. For a brief moment, hatred and rage were visible in his eyes before they vanished. All he could do was speculate as to what transpired. You have to tell me something, Naruto. Naruto yelled at Gaara. I don't have to tell you anything. He apologized after realizing what he had done. He closed his eyes and rubbed his temples, saying, sorry. I'm just exhausted. Running non-stop from Konoha all the way here has made for a busy week. I just need a place to stay for one night. Reluctantly, Gaara conceded. A cage housing a missing nin was unethical, but this was his friend. His first pal. Stay in my spare room. I'm sure you know where that is. After giving a nod, Naruto moved in the direction of the window. When a hand shaped like sand blocked his way out, he stopped. Naruto raised an eyebrow to ask Gaara a question, but he changed his mind when he saw the deathly glare. Do not wake Matsui up. She had a long day. The two men nodded their heads slightly, a silent agreement that caused the sand to slowly fall to the ground. Gaara was left to follow Naruto as he vanished into the night. The following morning, Gaara stood outside the door, unsure whether it would be better to open it or to knock. He might see something he didn't want to see if he chose to simply open the door, but if he knocked and woke Naruto, he would most likely get a Rasengan to the face. Matsui would most likely kill him for creating a mess in the house, and it was already 10 in the morning. Gaara yelled, Naruto. I'm coming in. Before going inside, he thought he would warn the blonde. Leaning against the door, he watched to see if anyone was entering. He was surprised to hear nothing. He opened the door slowly, taking his chances. He thought the blonde was either unconscious on the bed or snoring. He half expected him to be unconscious for at least 2 days based on his appearance from the previous evening. No response to Naruto? Gaara surveyed the space. Even though there was no indication that anyone had ever lived here, it was still spotless. He repeated, Naruto. Are you in here? He glanced around the room and saw that there was something by the table but that the bed had not been touched. Upon closer inspection, a note that was meant for him was discovered. Gaara. Your village would be troubled if you stayed here. We cannot allow a missing nin to cause you any problems at this time. I'll handle these issues on my own. Gaara read the paper twice while focusing intently on it. He swore aloud, that fool. Why does he have to be the hero who solves everyone else's problems? He will never be able to comprehend that aspect of him. Why was he unable to put himself before others? Was it simply too difficult to comprehend? Matsui showed up at the door, looking concerned. Is something the matter, Gaara-kun? She asked. Gaara was not the type to simply curse without cause. Crumpling up the paper, Gaara answered, nothing, Matsui. Nothing at all. That paper would have been in hell by now if appearances could burn. After 2 weeks hastily, the doors opened, revealing a nervous Kankuro. He held a small booklet in his hands and said, Gaara, I think you should take a look at this. Gaara ignored his brother's presence as he carried on with his paperwork. He would be damned if he missed dinner again, and this had to be out by today. Not now. Get out. Kankuro objected, saying, but I seriously think you should. Gaara glared at him as she looked up. Knowing that Gaara wouldn't listen to anyone without Tamari or Matsui present, Kankuro threw the booklet at his younger brother and said, fine. Have it your way. He occasionally forgot to eat lunch because he was so preoccupied with his work. Gaara took the pamphlet away from his face and examined it. He turned to face Kankuro and waited for him to elaborate. The new bingo book? He asked. Are you hinting that I should quit my day job and make a career hunting these people? Kankuro shook his head and rolled his eyes, turned to the last page. Gaara's eyes widened in surprise as he turned to the last page. This must be an error. What the hell is this? With a look of anger on his face, he threw the booklet down and asked, is this some kind of joke? It was a face they were all too familiar with on the final page. Uzumaki Naruto recognized partners, the Silent Storm. SS Missing.nin. To be killed immediately. Personal information. Very risky. Do not approach alone. Wanted for putting Konoha residents in danger and killing them. Gaara yelled angrily, what the hell is this trash? And demanded an explanation. In response to the intentions of their owner, the sand began to collect around Gaara. Was this the cause of his departure? No, there must be another reason. Naruto would not murder anyone. Those villagers must be reduced. As a result of his long-standing fear of his younger brother, Kankuro retreated. He has never witnessed Gaara so furious in his entire life. Not even when his seal was still shaky during the Chunin exams. I want all trades, alliances, resources, anything remotely connected to Konoha in my office within 5 minutes. Gaara barked. He should definitely demonstrate to them what it's like to joke with the cage if this was some sort of joke. As he hurried out of the room to retrieve the requested items, Kankuro nodded his head. He was the only one forced to serve as Gaara's secretary because no one else wanted the position. Remembering how furious Gaara was, he made the decision to quicken his pace out of concern that this would only cause problems. Gaara would only be messed with by a total moron at this moment. After a week, Shizune waited outside the doors, checking her watch. She could hear practically everything in the room if she pressed her ear against the door just a little. Shizune changed his mind. She would need to have faith that whatever they were discussing inside would be pertinent. Why does she have to deceive herself? When those two get together, they usually start off by sipping sake before Tsunade. Sama becomes irate over something Jiraiya. Sama says that is twisted. The two almost work together like a formula. Without the other, the first cannot occur. Get out! Get out! Yelled a furious voice. Jiraiya ducked under a flying saucer as the doors swung open. He shouted back, okay. Okay. No need to get angry. Avoiding a head on collision with an empty sake bottle, he hurriedly closed the door. Did you comment about her breasts again? Knowing that he had been caught red-handed, Jiraiya turned around and let out a quiet laugh. What? Shizune. Chan. I'm appalled. How could you think that of me? Shizune gave a headshake. Teaching an old dog new tricks was the analogy. They are incapable of learning from their errors. At last, the man acknowledged, yeah, there was nothing to be afraid of. If someone was like an uncle figure to Shizune, she wouldn't harm them. Shizune gazed at the door while holding the files closer to her chest. She's been depressed since he left, hasn't she? Yeah. Couldn't you do anything to cheer her up? Yeah. Shizune's remaining nerves began to twitch. Could you say anything else besides yeah? Yeah. That's all. She couldn't stand this perverted man any longer. No woman could ever be patient enough to speak to him in a normal way. Before letting herself into the room, she gave him a quick kick to the groin. Jiraiya was left on the ground outside, moaning in agony while tending to his family's valuables. Worried about her mentor's health, Shizune said, "Tsunade. Sama. Are you okay?" People have reported seeing Tsunade actually completing the paperwork, and she observed that she hasn't been drinking much lately. That was scary enough. Tsunade looked up, her face displaying bewilderment. "Did I do the right thing?" she asked. "Was my actions justified?" She had been questioning whether or not what she had done was right ever since he had left. She wondered what that boy was up to, and every day she felt her heart shattering into more and more fragments. In an attempt to lift her spirits, Jiraiya said, "I'll watch over that boy." What a laugh, haha. Not even that perverted leech ventured out into the village to search for him. He simply remained by her side all the time. Although she will never admit it, she was grateful for that. "I don't think you're a terrible person, Tsunade, Sama. I believe that you did it for the village. You saved his life by granting him his freedom." Shizune responded, "He wouldn't want you to be like this." Since he left, her mentor has been engrossed in her work because she feels that it is the only thing that can help her forget her error. Extreme measures were even necessary for Jiraiya, who insulted and became more perverted than usual. She started to show some life, so it has helped a little, but she is still very different from who she was before. With her chin resting on her arms, Tsunade remarked, "I don't think you'll see it this way. And now Suna has cut off all ties with Konoha. They didn't even give me a goddamn good reason." Shizune answered, "I'm sure everything will work itself out." She placed more papers down after noticing a vacant spot on the desk. Nobody had anticipated it happening so quickly. With a letter personally addressed to the Hokage, Suna dispatched a messenger bird to inform him that they were cutting off all connections with Konoha, ending their alliance, and threatening to execute any Konoha.nin found in the village. The council was furious, and that was an understatement. They demanded to go to war because they were so angry. Tsunade had to use every last bit of her persuasiveness to prevent it. Simply put, they lacked the manpower to invade the desert and engage the Kazekage in combat. Tsunade moaned when she realized that in the previous 10 minutes, her pile of papers had grown by only 5 inches. Simply put, it was unprecedented. Shizune laughed as she saw Tsunade's face light up with anger and frustration one by one. "Don't kill the papers now. There are some important documents in there." After glancing at the documents, Tsunade made a face and said, "Screw this." Feeling her body come to life, she stood up and stretched her arms. She headed for the door and gestured for Shizune to follow her, saying, "It's too nice of a day to be spent cooped up in this stuffy office." Shizune accepted the invitation with pleasure. It was a very pleasant day, and perhaps it marked a fresh start. The village started to recover as the months went by, repairing the damage. Knowing that their kids were safe brought the villagers joy once more. To ensure that something similar would never occur again, Konoha's entire military division started to reassess their standards. Additionally, Konoha had started to provide ninjas with additional training so they could be ready for any eventuality. Missions continued to be issued and finished at the regular pace. To the surprise of his team, even Kakashi had started to arrive on time. Sakura and Sasuke continued to go out, but they were going cautiously. They had put a lot of effort into developing their relationship, and neither one wanted to rush it and ruin it. Sakura occasionally had to keep an eye on Sasuke in case he overtrained. He had taken it upon himself to intensify his training ever since he was discovered battered on the ground. Everyone can only speculate as to what transpired that day. On a confidential note, Team 10 and their sensei, Asuma Sarutobi, continued their negotiations with Suna. Who's their correspondent? Tamari herself. She was too proud to tell her pineapple-shaped boyfriend that she was in love with him. She never returned to this place except for him. The team was trying to figure out a way to bring Suna and Konoha back together, but they weren't getting very far with their plan. Guy's team was, well, Guy's team forever. Although Lee and Neji were discharged from the hospital, they were still too weak to perform missions. They were removed from active duty and were gradually but steadily getting better. They were forever scarred by that explosion, which served as a constant reminder of their good fortune. Kiba was also removed from the active duty list. Satenten was transferred to Kurenai's squad to take his place. In a lot of ways, the village changed after Naruto left. Good or bad, it still demonstrated to them that they were too laid back and that one man could cripple half the village's military might. After departing the temporary Konoha hospital, Danzo appeared to vanish. Since the incident, no one has seen Danzo's hair or hide, but rumors circulated that he was still alive and planning retaliation. After 6 months, Shizune rushed into the room and yelled, "Tsunade! Sama!" interrupting Tsunade's daily nap. After a few months, things started to settle down, and Tsunade stopped blaming herself for Naruto's departure. With Tsunade sleeping and ignoring the paperwork, things were gradually getting back to normal. With a groggy voice, Tsunade replied, "Huh? Wizot?" Wiping the drool from her mouth, she sat up slowly, wondering why she had to be disturbed. Team Kakashi and Asuma have found the entrance to the Akatsuki base. They are currently engaging Uchiha Itachi and Kisame Hoshigaki in battle. Tsunade jumped up and knocked over a stack of papers, asking, "What?" This was significant. No one was aware of the reason behind Akatsuki's recent movements. Where is the base located? Shizune swiftly went over her report, skimming the sections. She kept reading the report and said, Kakashi failed to mention their present location. The Cycloptic man was cursed by Tsunade for his indolence. Tsunade sensed that something negative was happening outside, and she didn't like it. Tell them to regroup. There must be a reason why those two were the only ones there. Shizune didn't hesitate to speak up. Her voice carried an urgency that she could hear. Only when she genuinely thought it was a crisis did she act in this manner. She promptly excused herself and left the room to fulfill the task at hand. Base Akatsuki Itachi put his elbow down on Sasuke's left leg in an attempt to break the knee, saying, "You're really pitiful, Sasuke. You had several teachers and yet you're still weak. I shouldn't have spared you back then." In an attempt to get Itachi to let go, Sasuke leapt to his feet and used his other leg to execute a roundhouse kick. Itachi dodged the kick and was flung violently in Sakura's direction. Sakura positioned herself to capture Sasuke while minimizing the harm to them. "You come in here and expect to kill me at your level? I'm very disappointed." As he removed himself from Sakura and checked on her before returning his focus to Itachi, Sasuke shot back, "You don't know anything about me." He inhaled deeply and extended his left arm. "Chidori!" he yelled as he hurried ahead, and the chirping reverberated throughout the cavern. "Die, Itachi!" exclaimed Sasuke. Feeling that today was the day he could finally exact his revenge, he ran directly to Itachi. Itachi stood there, unmoved by Sasuke's murderous intent. He simply pointed at Sasuke with his finger in response. Sasuke.kun. Wait! Sakura jumped in when she noticed Itachi's slight movement, figuring that Itachi was plotting something. "Sakura no!" exclaimed Kakashi. He caught a glimpse of Sakura ignoring his warning out of the corner of his eye. As a stand-in for Shikamaru, who was the first to be targeted by the missing nin, Kisame was the copy ninja's current focus. Alongside Kisame chuckled at the Konoha. Nin's pitiful attempt, saying, "That tickled but fun time is over. Get off me." He could not be stopped by such a weakling. He was enjoying himself too much to kill them, and they had been fighting for 20 minutes. After removing the man, the Akatsuki member was shocked to discover that he was having trouble moving his own body. What the hell? With his hands by his side, Shikamaru moved into Kisame's field of vision and said, "It takes two to do teamwork. Not one." He would let the missing nin see the method that would lead to his demise. When Kisame saw that he was still standing, his eyes widened. "I thought I killed you." Shikamaru cleaned the blood from the almost fatal wound so Kisame could see it for himself. "Nope. You just missed my vitals. With Choji's strength combined with my Kagemane, the unstoppable becomes stoppable." Kisame tightened his jaw. This was not to his liking. With all his strength, he pushed against the shadows as he struggled to advance his Samahata. Trying to stop the man from moving, Shikamaru grunted. "Do it now." He was unable to contain himself. He might have another 20 seconds before he passes out from exhaustion. Taking the cue, Kakashi leapt over Shikamaru while quickly navigating a set of seals with his hands. Grasping his right hand, Kakashi felt the chakra coursing through it. His right arm resembled the Chidori's as he ran toward Kisame. Seeing the attack coming, Kisame tried to block it by raising his hand with the Samahata in front of him. Kisame saw Asuma emerge in front of him out of the corner of his eye and said, "Not this time. I've been waiting a long time for this day." Kisame screamed in agony as he saw the man cut off his right hand with a swift slash, rendering him helpless to stop the assault. Asuma gripped these trench knives tightly and took a puff of smoke. He waited for Kakashi to complete it while he stood there. Kakashi yelled, Reikiri, and threw his arm forward, striking Kisame over the heart. Feeling exhausted, Shikamaru collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. Ino rushed to his side and began tending to his injuries. Her hands were already beginning the healing jutsu as she asked, "Why didn't you just let me heal you before?" She was relieved that all of the long hours she had spent training with Tsunade Sama were finally paying off. Shikamaru chuckled quietly. It was just part of the plan. He sensed a body beckoning him to take a break. He soon passed out from exhaustion after he was unable to keep his eyes open any longer. While she sat there focused on tending to his wound, Ino secretly felt proud of him for persevering this long. Kisame, a man who was known for having a high threshold for pain, learned today that pain had a whole new meaning. He suffered unbearable injuries at the hands of these insects. Initially, he was barely alive after losing his dominant right hand. What a pain in the ass. Ignoring the pain, he gave Choji a hard left elbow to the back of his head, knocking him out cold. He stepped forward fluidly and grabbed Kakashi by the throat, holding on to it. Kisame growled, "I'll take your death as payment for my hand." He made a huge mistake by underestimating his opponents. Before it was too late, he needed to get them. After smirking and struggling a little against Kisame, Kakashi vanished in a cloud of smoke, exposing a log in Kisame's procession. The Kawarimi took Kisame by surprise, and he didn't see Asuma come up directly behind the log with his hands on the dragon seal. Kaden. Hi Sekusho, he trapped Kisame inside a lingering cloud of smoke by blowing it out in front of him. Kisame exclaimed, "Arg!" and took a few steps in an attempt to get away from the blazing smoke. He tried to wipe the smoke from his face, ignoring the pain in his arms. The earlier attack had already ripped his cloak to shreds. It dawned on him at last that the whole fight, from start to finish, had been a prelude to this moment. Asuma used all of his remaining chakra to extend his wind element on his weapon before severing Kisame's life and ninja career by slicing him in two. Kakashi was barely upright after battling the S-rank ninja when Asuma approached him. To defeat this beast, the four of them were required. He questioned whether they would have enough to battle Itachi. Kakashi answered languidly as he fell into his friend's arm, and then there was two. Alongside Itachi, when Sasuke discovered his arm piercing Itachi's heart, he was smirking and watching Itachi cough up blood. However, his expression changed to one of shock when the Itachi in front of him vanished into birds. "This is how you do it, little brother." To Sasuke's surprise, Itachi was running toward him with a Chidori when he turned around. "How on earth did he use Genjutsu on me?" Sasuke dismissed that idea and started getting the necessary hand seals ready for another Chidori right away. "Bring it, Itachi." He sprinted in Itachi's direction, both Uchihas arching their arms back as they gained speed. "Chidori!" they both exclaimed. As Chidori squared off against Chidori, each vying for supremacy, the light grew brighter. Ugh! There must be a joke here. Sasuke fought to keep Itachi at bay, making sure he wasn't gaining any leverage. Our levels cannot be this goddamn far apart. Itachi kept pushing, hands locked in combat, and he felt his legs giving out. Itachi took a step forward and used his body weight to gain an advantage, saying, "You lose again, Sasuke." Itachi instantly pulled his hands away when he saw Sasuke straining to push back, knocking his younger brother off balance. Shit. Itachi released his hand, canceling his own Chidori, and Sasuke felt himself slipping. When Sasuke looked up, he saw Itachi grinning down at him. This cannot be how it ends. Itachi swiftly sent Sasuke reeling backwards by slamming his knee into his jaw. When the time was right, he threw out his arm, aiming the black Chidori directly at the heart. The Shinigami will not be claiming Sasuke. Kun's soul today, Itachi. Sakura was standing there when Sasuke turned his head slightly, and he could see chakra building up in her fist. "Take this." Sakura slammed her knuckle into the floor, sparing Sasuke's life by sending a shockwave that knocked him off his feet. When Itachi saw Sasuke fall to the ground in front of him, narrowly avoiding his attack, his face lit up with surprise. Sasuke recognized his window of opportunity and countered. After regaining his footing, he gave Itachi an uppercut. The elder Uchiha retreated a few paces, taken aback by the unexpected assault. Itachi grinned and wiped the blood from his mouth. Itachi's normal Sharingan transformed into the Mangekyo and started spinning, saying, "Good try, but it's still futile." Something prevented him from moving as he started to summon one of the Mangekyo's techniques. She appeared behind him, and Ino whispered, "You're quite careless for a missing nin." Itachi felt something stab him in the back before he could react. The moment Ino took the syringe off Itachi's back, Itachi felt his body going numb. She prevented Itachi from performing any jutsu by holding out his arm. "Now Sasuke." exclaimed Sakura and Ino. Both of them were aware of how crucial it was that Sasuke murder his older brother. He had been waiting for this day, living in grief and hatred since he was a genin, and now the opportunity has finally come. Sasuke exclaimed, "Today it all ends, Itachi." While taking deep breaths, Sasuke shouted, "Reikiri," as the power surged through his body. With twice as much damage and twice as much killing power, this was the enhanced Chidori. After putting a lot of effort into getting it to his stage, he can now use it for assassination, which is its original purpose. With his eyes leading the way, he ran in the direction of his older brother. Knowing that he was going to die soon, Itachi closed his eyes. There was no point in disputing it. He didn't regret anything, all he did was what was asked of him. His heart ached to see his younger brother murder him, to keep his eyes open. Sasuke leapt into the air, declaring, "Today you will finally pay for what you did 13 years ago." He was eager to be released from the weight that had been placed upon him. He was even more enraged when he noticed that Itachi's eyes were emotionless while he was in flight. He pushed his arm forward, readying the last judgment for his brother, saying, "Even now you still show no remorse for the massacre." A cloaked figure who had been watching from the sidelines suddenly made the decision to strike. In an instant, the figure vanished from the sidelines and kicked Sasuke in the ribs to deflect his attack and send him away from Itachi. An explosion occurred when Sasuke's left arm unintentionally touched the ground, sending him skidding towards the ground. Nobody knew what was happening, so they all stood there. With his hands concealed within his cloak, the figure stood before Itachi. Angry at the newcomer's arrival, Sasuke slowly stood up. He spat out, "Who the hell are you?" He had numerous opportunities to murder Itachi, but they were all cut short. He looked carefully around the crowd, but the figure ignored him. 1, 2. There are 4 people left, he said to himself. He looked at the man behind him and thought the scene was funny. Recognizing the voice, Itachi raised an eyebrow and said, "Itachi, it seems that our positions are now reversed." He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. No response. It must have been a pretty strong drug to keep you from talking. With adrenaline pumping through his veins, Sasuke vanished from his position and said, "If you're with Itachi, then you are my enemy as well." Even though he was moving more quickly than before, he ignored it. He was determined to murder those in front of him. He was already behind his brother and this enigmatic figure, his Mangekyo Sharingan activated. Immediately performing another Reikiri and thrusting his arm forward, Sasuke declared, "Nothing will stand in my way. It is my destiny to avenge my clan." He intended to end the fight with a single blow. The attack was neutralized when the figure removed his right hand from the cloak and took Sasuke's left hand. Sasuke appeared horrified. He couldn't comprehend that this individual used only his right hand to halt his attack. It was simply unreal. Sakura, Ino, and Asuma gazed at the enigmatic individual, each speculating about his identity. "Are you always this emotional? Why don't you just be a good dog and play dead?" He was definitely strong enough to use one hand to cancel out the Reikiri. Demanding, "Who the hell are you?" Sasuke said. He was taken aback by the man's strength and attempted to escape his hold. He couldn't possibly move away from it. After scowling, the figure responded to him, "I'm what you call the calm before the storm." He crushed Sasuke's hand by lowering it and applying more pressure. Sasuke's hand went useless, and he let out a painful scream. The man then slammed his fist into Sasuke's ribs, breaking several of them, and said, "I'm sorry. Did that hurt?" Sasuke fell to the ground, his body wailing for help. His eyes glowed with hatred as he glared at the man. "Sasuke-kun!" cried Sakura. She was preparing a punch that could compete with her sensei's as she charged in blindly. For the moment, the man ignored Sasuke and focused on Sakura. He saw Sakura leap forward, her hand arched back, ready to slam it into his face. With an open palm, the enigmatic figure held his ground and deflected Sakura's enhanced punch. The sound of her fist slamming into the man's palm made everyone cringe. Sakura pulled her fist back, cracking and breaking several bones in her hand, and let out a painful scream. She glared at the man as she sat on the floor, holding her hands tightly. The figure took off his hood to reveal his blue eyes and blonde hair, saying, "It's been a long time, Sakura." Sakura recognized the figure, and her eyes grew wide. Naruto?" Everyone was stunned as they stood there. The word, shock, was an understatement. Out of all the potential locations, nobody had anticipated the blonde's appearance here. Naruto stood staring into Itachi's eyes with a face devoid of emotion. "My debt to you is now repaid, Itachi. A life for a life." Sasuke screamed, "Why must you always be in my way, Naruto?" His aspirations were always thwarted by Naruto. He never had a moment without competition. With his right hand on the kusanagi, Sasuke bounded forward. With the intention of chopping off Naruto's head, he brought it down with a diagonal slash. Sasuke was forced to drop the sword when Naruto moved forward and caught the blade between his fingers. If you weren't worth Itachi's time, you are certainly not worth mine. Naruto was about to continue when Ino, who had remained hidden behind Itachi, grabbed another syringe and leapt behind him with the intention of injecting him with the same substance she used on Itachi. Just as Naruto turned around and saw her tiny figure, he slammed his elbow into Sasuke's face, forcing the younger Uchiha to drop the sword. Holding the sword, he sidestepped the girl twice to avoid the needle's stab and ended up behind Ino. Naruto calmly breathed while holding the sharp sword to Ino's throat. "It's been a long time, Ino. It seems the years have been kind to you." Ino scoffed and said, "Screw you, demon." Given that Asuma was holding his beloved trench knives and Kakashi was unconscious, Naruto turned his focus to the others. "If you would kindly let me leave here with Itachi, I can promise to spare your student's life. It's your call now." Asuma tightened his jaw. It was a difficult choice. He was down 4 men, and there was no assurance as to what he would do to Ino. He made an effort to look for more information, but he was at a loss. He couldn't defeat Naruto in his current condition. A grin gradually appeared on Asuma's face as Naruto saw that he was hesitating for a while. "It's not that hard, Asuma. Let me go in exchange for her life, or else I'll send her body back in a coffin," Naruto told the man. "Konoha will greatly mourn the loss of the Yamanaka heir." Throughout his years of service, Asuma had no choice but to carry out his enemy's orders. He uttered the painful words, "Take Itachi and leave." He already regretted them. "No," cried a voice. Sasuke prepared for what appeared to be a final rakery as he painfully struggled to stand again. Naruto questioned, "You would risk her life to complete your revenge?" "One lost would mean the deaths of several dangerous criminals," Sakura yelled. She was making every effort to avoid jumping right into the situation. Ino's death would not be in vain if they were able to carry out this attack. Ino looked directly into her best friend's eyes. She was shocked by what was taking place. After everything they had been through, Sakura decided to break off their friendship. "Don't worry, Ino. I swear to you we'll get him and avenge your death." Ino yelled back, "No, not this way. I don't want it this way." Her eyes started to well up with tears. She was not yet ready to die. She has yet to complete all of her goals. She desired a family and a lovely home where her children could play and grow up. She began to lose all of those dreams she had. Sasuke rushed in, shouting, "Rakery!" with the intention of killing everyone in his path. This last attack had cost him all of his chakra. Naruto shook his head and stood there. This generation of ninjas that Konoha raised turned out to be quite a disappointment, hasn't it, Asuma-san? Asuma appeared perplexed when he noticed Naruto had vanished from Sasuke's path, causing him to crash into Sakura and send them both to the ground again. He looked around, ignoring the loud explosion the attack had caused, and at last he saw Naruto standing by the doorway, cradling Ino while a cage Bushin held Itachi. Naruto said icily, "The deal's off, Asuma-san. I will be sending her back in a body bag." Asuma yelled, "Wait," at Naruto. He would gladly sacrifice his life to save his students if it meant saving hers. While Ino hasn't seen much of the world, he has. Naruto took Itachi and his student with him when he vanished into the forest before he could do anything more. 10 miles away, the Uchiha received a hard landing on the ground after the Naruto clone dropped Itachi off his shoulder. The original Naruto tied Ino up and placed her carefully next to a tree. He awakened Ino by splattering water on her face. "You will tell me what you did to Itachi." When Ino opened her eyes, she was shocked to see her captor's face. She spat venomously, "Why should I help you?" Naruto gave her a fierce look. Naruto placed a kunai close to her throat so she could feel the coldness of the weapon and said, "Even in this type of situation, you're still a bitch. Don't you know when you've already lost? They left you for dead. You might as well make yourself useful to me before I end your pitiful life." From the pit of her stomach, Ino felt her fears rising. She genuinely feared this man, fearing that he would murder her in cold blood. The Naruto she knew had changed. This was the voice of a heartless murderer. Naruto drew a little blood and pressed the weapon in, asking, "Are you going to talk? Or do I have to dig a little deeper?" With a quick response, Ino said, "It was an experimental paralyzing serum. The effects should have worn off by now. Please don't kill me," in a panic. Naruto turned to see Itachi moving after hearing a noise behind him. After regaining sensation over his body, the Uchiha started to move. "A bit theatrical back there, don't you think, Naruto-kun?" Naruto gave a shrug. Whatever works, Itachi. The Uchiha gave a nod. Since the boy vanished after destroying half of Konoha's military force, they have been unable to locate him. Tracking him was extremely challenging because the Kyuubi container managed to evade their radar. Why did you save me? Startled by the question, Naruto blinked twice. He did, however, have a reason for saving his life. I've come to take you up on that offer. Itachi pondered before responding. The strength that the Kyuubi container displayed actually impressed him in his mind. He seemed to have made significant progress while traveling. Knowing what offer the blonde was referring to, the Uchiha replied, "We'll be glad to have you." Naruto Uzumaki might be a fantastic addition to the team after losing his partner. Naruto's gaze shifted to the whimpering, terrified, looking Ino sitting there. Naruto approached her and fixed her with his gaze. He glanced around to see if anyone was nearby and said, "I could end your life right here, but I won't." As most people do before cutting or stabbing something, he pulled out a kunai and held it tightly. For Ino, time seemed to slow down as she watched Naruto get closer and closer, dreading the moment he would finally get to her. Her thoughts returned to Naruto Uzumaki, the mystery that is Konoha. Everyone's comments made it impossible for Ino to recall spending so much time with the boy. She sensed his strength radiating from him. Like the warmth of the sun, it went by so fast. Naruto simply vanished from their lives in an instant, then reappeared at the trial only to vanish again. The man was now in front of her and was most likely going to kill her. She would ensure that this wouldn't have occurred if she could go back in time and alter everything. When Ino noticed Naruto drawing his arms closer, she closed her eyes, bracing herself for the pain. She had previously been sliced, stabbed, and cut, and each time it still made her feel afraid. A second later, feeling her chains come loose, she opened them. She never in a million years thought he would do this. She would have taken the same action if it had been the other way around. Wondering why Naruto hadn't killed her, Ino raised her head and looked him in the eyes. "Why?" she said in a whisper. Gazing into her eyes, Naruto pondered whether she was merely inquisitive or simply foolish. With a mysterious reply, he said, "A storm doesn't always hit everything." Itachi was left alone in the forest as Naruto turned around and fled with her in an unidentified direction. Close to Kei's no Kuni's border. "Hold on." Itachi's response was abrupt. They traveled in silence for the most part for hours as they made their way to their destination. They had no need of talking to each other. These two men were solitary and cut off from the world for the majority of their lives. Being rejected by the place they used to call home, they have learned to live independently. Because of their past, which no one can avoid but must accept, they were called monsters. Uzumaki Naruto, the Kyuubi container himself, and Uchiha Itachi, the man who destroyed his clan all by himself in a single night. These were men of action, not men of words, so even if they had spoken, they would have nothing to discuss. Their journey came to a temporary halt when Itachi veered off course and hit the ground. "We're going back." Inquiring as to why they were stopping, Naruto landed directly beside him. "Is that really necessary?" he asked in a frustrated tone. Itachi took note of the tone and glared at him coldly. With a bitter tone, he asked, "What does it matter to you?" Naruto gave a shrug. It was useless to argue at this point. "I rather not waste my time idling around for useless things." He needed Itachi to get there, and he would have to continue playing his game if the Uchiha weren't prepared to take him there. With only one thing on his mind, he took the initiative and led the way back, the joining. Itachi shook his head and sighed. Itachi followed Naruto in the hopes of catching up with him before he abandoned him, saying, "I hope the leader was right about you." Alongside Ino, to say that Ino was insane would be an understatement. She was completely insane. The wrath of the devil himself was nothing compared to what she was experiencing at the moment. She destroyed everything in her path on her way back to Konoha, including trees, branches, and anything else she could use to vent her annoyance. In just a few minutes, her day took a turn for the worse. The scenes kept playing over and over in her mind, and she kept cursing her day. Everyone's level of choreography was astounding. They all seemed to be involved in this elaborate plan to ruin her life. The words, "It was no one's fault but mine that I was captured as a hostage but," were spoken aloud by Ino. She learned how to do this trick from Tenten. She was able to freely collect her thoughts and approach them in a rational and scientific manner by expressing them aloud. She also used it as a calming technique. Shikamaru claims that she has a history of having wild outbursts. "I should have never accepted this mission. I knew I should have stayed in Konoha." The number of missions a village receives defines it. The village's reputation improves with the number of missions it receives. Ninjas can also be evaluated through missions. Their status increases with the number of missions they complete. The value of a ninja's life depends on how well they complete their missions. There was no real assurance as to what a ninja's career would bring or if they would survive to see tomorrow. Because this job is so dangerous, it varies. Ino snarled and clutched her knuckles, saying, "To throw away my life like some sort of useless trash, that is their fault." The fact that her sister, whom she regarded as her best friend, was merely a front infuriated her. With a shout of, "Ah!" Ino struck the tree with her fist. Although she winced at the pain, she dismissed it because, at the time, it was also relieving her. Whispering, "Damn Sakura," Ino said. After taking a step forward, Ino felt as though she was momentarily losing her focus as she prepared to continue her journey home. Pressing her palm to her forehead, Ino stumbled back. "Whoa. I must be losing it." She saw a picture of Sakura with a smirk on her face. As she stared at the image of Sakura that was fixed in front of her, Ino told herself, "That must be it. I'm pushing my body too much and this is its way of telling me to take it easy." She glanced in a different direction, but Sakura was also present. Ino snarls in frustration. "Why am I seeing her face now?" A voice that sounded like Sakura's whispered, "That's simple Ino. Pig. You can't stand the fact that I'm stronger than you and I'm also dating Sasuke. Kun. You're just jealous that you can't be like me." The voice made Ino's body tremble. Hearing the voice of the person she wished to exact revenge on wasn't exactly her top priority after hours of traveling alone. Ino yelled, "Sakura! Come out here, forehead girl." She looked around her, looking for any indications of a genjutsu. The image of Sakura reappeared before her, grinning at her again. "Why?" Ino came rushing forward, her fist clenched. With her fist slamming into Sakura's face, Ino yelled, "Why the hell are you smirking?" The girl was left completely bewildered as the image gradually faded. Sakura was not present, despite the fact that she had just destroyed a tree. Ino collapsed to the ground, leaning against the splintered tree, exhausted. She prayed that she would return to Konoha alive and whispered into the wind, "I really need to get back to Konoha." With Naruto and Itachi, Naruto asked, "Why are we going back?" Though he wasn't positive, he already knew the answer. He detested the uncertainty that pervaded the atmosphere. One of those rules men make for themselves, that's all. He lived his life according to a few rules, which have helped him get by thus far. Never assume anything and never put your trust in anyone. His two most important rules were those. Itachi replied, "I need to bury his body." Few people were aware of this, but they shared a bond. A brotherly bond, to be exact. Since he first joined the organization, they have been partners, so abandoning his friend in that manner would be dishonorable. "I don't see that as a valid reason for going back. He's dead. There's nothing we can do. We should be moving." Before Naruto could complete that phrase, Itachi's hand clamped down on his throat as he crashed into a tree. With his Mangekyo Sharingan spinning quickly, Itachi gazed into the man's eyes. Itachi cried icily, "This is about what I want to do, not what you want to do. Open your damn eyes, Itachi." He died because he was weak. The weak has no place among the strong. He might be a partner, even a friend to you, but to me, he was nothing. Naruto replied with a similarly icy voice. Neither man moved as they gazed at one another. At last, Itachi lets go of Naruto and lets him fall to the ground. "If you ever disrespect Kisame again, I will kill you." Naruto emphasized Itachi's clan name in a whisper, "I would like to see you try Uchiha-san." The two glared at one another as tension between them increased. With his figure towering over Naruto, Itachi said, "Don't try me, Uzumaki, or I'll show you what a real Uchiha can do." Naruto responded, making fun of Itachi, "Your brother tried to prove that already. Will there be a difference between you and him? I surely don't see it. My weak brother is blinded by his ambitions. Do not compare him to me." Itachi responded. He left Naruto outside and began to make his way alone into the cave. Naruto frowned as he sat there. His eyes briefly turned red as he said, "A dead man is still a dead man no matter how you look at it." Gazing into the cave, Naruto uttered the words, "There is no such thing as a good man in this world, Itachi." At 5 p.m. in Konoha, Tsunade stretched her arms and gave a little yawn. The paperwork was just high enough to serve as her pillow at that time of day. Before she could lower her head, Shizune dashed into the room, causing the doors to slam against the wall as they opened. "Tsunade. Sama." Tsunade groaned a little. Her afternoon nap is over. She deserved a nap after a long day of paperwork and sake. What is it now, Shizune? She couldn't leave her office unless Akatsuki and demons were attacking half of Konoha. "They're back, Tsunade." Sama, uncertain of what she was discussing, Tsunade arched an eyebrow. "Who's back?" "Team 7 and 10. Tsunade sat up, She was fully focused on the news. Compared to completing some awful paperwork, this was far superior. Well, go get them in here. I have some questions for them. Shizune paused for a moment. They're currently in the hospital at the moment, Tsunade. Sama. They ran into some problems while encountering Itachi and Kisame. Tsunade jumped out of her seat and ran for the door, wondering what had happened. She yelled, "Come on, don't just stand there. We have to get down there." Shizune gave a quick nod and sprinted after her. Alongside Ino cursed in her head, "My god. I didn't think we traveled that far out from Konoha." She was far from where she was going. Trees and more trees were all that was visible. She was debating whether or not to make camp as it was already growing dark. Is exacting my retribution so crucial that it motivates me to keep going? Ino's face abruptly changed. I wonder what kept him going. Suddenly, pictures of him appeared in her head. She wasn't even considering it. She leaned against a tree and began to laugh. I must be going crazy. She recalled her interactions with the feisty blonde. Surprisingly, she couldn't recall ever spending time with the blonde, no matter how hard she tried. She asked herself, is this really how much I know about Naruto? She was unable to recall anything about him, including his birthday, favorite pastimes, or even his likes and dislikes. She wanted questions that might evoke a memory she had forgotten, so she swiftly pushed those pessimistic thoughts from her mind. She gave it some more thought and concluded, there must be something about him that I knew. When she recalled something from their genin days, she had the answer. Rewind, Naruto. What do you plan on doing when you become older? Replied Iruka. He always completed this exercise as the exam was coming to a close. He wished to inquire about the children's aspirations and inspire them to pursue them. Knowing that these kids might not have much of a life after graduation, he wanted to make a difference in their lives. Naruto exclaimed, I'm going to be the greatest Hokage there ever was. Leaping onto his desk, he gestured toward the window. Knowing that he was the class's dead last, the students erupted in laughter as he said, I will surpass the Yondaime and then everyone will see that I'm better than he is. A loser who, despite his best efforts, was unable to realize that dream. You're a loser, Naruto. There's no way you could become Hokage. Why don't I become Hokage for you? I have a better chance than you. Heck, even Choji could become Hokage before you, Kiba yelled. Ino gave a snort. She glanced at her Sasuke-kun and said, Get real, Kiba. Sasuke-kun is the only person who could become Hokage. The boy she had loved when she was younger. Naruto merely grinned. That Teme couldn't hold a candle to my powers, Ino-chan. You're better off leaving him for me. Ino chuckled again. Get real, Naruto. Get real. End of flashback. Ino let out a sigh. She didn't actually know anything about him that was pertinent. Her knowledge was limited to fragments. In addition to the village's small number of blonde residents, she had nothing. She was aware that he was briefly seeing Sakura, but after their breakup, he simply vanished from their lives. Naruto was never present when she hung out with the other members of the Rookie Nine. Nobody seemed to care that he was missing, nor even bothered to mention his name. Her heart raced with a little guilt. Was it our fault that he ended up this way? Would one person's concern have made a difference? She made an effort to put herself in his shoes, but it was challenging to be Naruto. Being him alone was unthinkable for her. The more she considered it, the more she understood that she had never made a sincere effort to comprehend Naruto, and as a result, she nearly perished at his hands. That thought made her shudder. She could still remember his icy blue eyes. Will you truly be happy when you get your revenge, Naruto? Is revenge the only path that a person that's been betrayed can take? She inquired. No response was given, not even a hint of the night wind. She made fun of herself. Nobody was going to respond to her, of course. In the first place, nobody was here. Seeking some kind of solution, she gazed up at the stars. What made you turn out this way, Naruto? Would it have been different if someone cared? Ino passed a shooting star by chance while she was returning on her journey. She seemed to have someone listening to her. Hospital in Konoha. Tsunade took a moment to catch her breath outside the door before going inside. She couldn't simply walk into the room panting. As the Hokage, she had a reputation to maintain. She would lose the respect of her fellow ninjas if they discovered that she became exhausted from running here. She heard laughter and conversation coming from inside, and she grinned. This was a positive indication that all was well. Everyone kept talking as she opened the door, oblivious to her presence. She announced her presence to everyone with a little cough. I see that you're all okay. Sakura responded, Shisho. The others politely referred to her as Hokage-sama. After giving a nod, Tsunade and Shizune went into the room. She glanced around the room and said, I see that you're all back in one piece. With the exceptions of a few. Sakura had bandages wrapped around her hand, and Sasuke had them on his upper body. Shikamaru was keeping Choji company by sitting on a chair beside his bed. Asuma was smoking a cigarette in a prohibited area while standing next to Kakashi. Tsunade noticed that someone was missing as she scanned the room. Where's that Yamanaka girl? Before smothering his cigarette on the ground, Asuma took one final drag. He had a responsibility to inform her. As her Junin instructor, he will ensure that her death was not in vain because she has been a part of his team since their genin days. She's gone, Hokage. Sama. What do you mean she's gone? She couldn't have disappeared during a mission, replied Tsunade. To flee from a mission was against protocol. If Anbu discovered Ino, that alone could result in her death. When she noticed that no one had answered her question, she turned to look around, but everyone was still avoiding her stare with their heads down. The silent treatment was incomprehensible to her. They must have been keeping something from her. When Asuma finally responded, he took her. That was the reality. There was no point in hiding the fact that she was gone, no matter how hard he tried. Tsunade turned to face the elder Sarutobi, attempting to decipher the meaning of that statement. Kakashi said, "We ran into Naruto, Hokage. Sama." In a stutter, Tsunade said, Naruto? He's alive. What was he doing there? Is he okay? Asuma interrupted Kakashi and said, "No, I'll tell her. It was my fault things turned out like this. You might want to sit down for this. It's a long story." Tsunade pulled up a chair and nodded. Tsunade gasped as Asuma recounted their mission report in its entirety. The fact that Naruto was involved in this astounded her. She tried to talk herself out of it, saying, he wouldn't do this. Naruto could not have been the one who attacked them. She insisted, why would he do this? With a sigh, Sakura lowered her head and said, Shisho, it's true. Sakura played with her broken hand, feeling a little pain, and said, he was probably working with Akatsuki. That's the only reason why he would show up there. With his hands around Sakura's waist, Sasuke confidently answered, don't worry, Hokage. Sama, we'll get him next time. Yeah, Sakura replied, bending tighter in his hug. Tsunade sensed that a severe migraine was approaching. To give them time to rest, Tsunade got up and walked out of the room, saying, get some rest and then I want you all in my office first thing tomorrow morning. 10 a.m. the following morning. As she looked up from her paperwork, Tsunade noticed her apprentice standing by the door. Excuse me, Tsunade. Sama. Sakura is here to see you. Tsunade acknowledged the request with a nod of her head. After Sakura entered, Shizune shut the door to make sure their conversation wouldn't be interrupted. Thank you, Shizune. Wondering what had happened to the others, Tsunade glanced around. She wanted more than one of them in her office. Where are the others? Sakura replied, they were just too tired to come. Everyone deserved a day off after that mission. Losing Ino had been difficult for everyone. Tsunade pointed to the seat beside Shizune after muttering something about slothful ninjas. She cleared all the paperwork for today, saying, sit. We have a lot to talk about. The mission report contained a section that appeared to have been made up. She was unable to accept the reality that Naruto had actually committed these crimes. It was simply too fantastic. Alongside Ino told herself, I'm almost there. She was so close to home that she could practically taste it. She could see the new Konoha gates as she approached. Tsunade. Sama had spent a great deal of time and energy reconstructing these gates. Shino once explained to her that it was a memorial to the ninjas who died on that fateful day, but she didn't understand why the Hokage would do something like that. She noticed a young genin team consisting of 2 girls and a boy departing Konoha as she got closer to the front gate. As they passed her, she couldn't help but experience déjà vu. When she first started, these girls were just like her, inexperienced and, based on their looks at that boy, fangirls. Oh well. Ino pondered, they'll soon discover that life isn't all that glamorous. Apart from her lack of interest in Sasuke, not much has changed in her personal life. Because of her friendship with Ibiki, she put her social life on hold and preferred not to be dating. She only had a few criteria when it came to dating. A man should be strong, attractive, and aware of his goals in life. Anything less was not acceptable to her. The image of Naruto gazing at her with his icy blue eyes somehow appeared in her mind. She discovered that she was enthralled by his blue eyes rather than scared of them as she looked back into them. She was enthralled by something in those eyes. Without hesitation, she pushed her thoughts aside and made her way to the Hokage Tower. She needed to make amends with a certain girl with a pink head. As Ino ran through the streets of Konoha, she thought, hell is about to be frozen over. With Naruto and Itachi, we travel all night to come here and you're still not ready to bury him. You're wasting my time here, Itachi. Naruto said sternly. He didn't want to spend the last hour sitting against a rock. He was tempted to kill Itachi right away because his patience was already wearing thin. With his eyes closed, Itachi answered, I'll be done when I'm done. At the moment, he was honoring his fallen comrade in a silent prayer. Before vanishing in a cloud of smoke, Naruto said, I don't like it when people keep me waiting, Itachi. Do not make me wait. The Uchiha was left alone. Hokage Tower in Konoha. Tsunade repeated the information, asking, so let me get this straight. You are saying that Naruto was the cause of all this? The blonde going to such lengths to do something like this was hard for her to believe. Sakura responded, that's what really happened, Hokage. Sama. She could still recall the moment they first met, his gloomy eyes gazing into her. The memory made her shudder. A familiar face appeared as the doors blew open before anyone else could say anything. Sakura let out a squeal, Ino. You're alive. She leapt from her chair and sprinted over to her companion. We all thought you were dead. She tried to give the blonde a hug, but as she got closer, she ended up lying on the ground, not understanding what had happened. Don't touch me right now, Sakura. The only thing preventing me from killing you right now is the Hokage. Ino made a threat. Tsunade was shocked to witness such behavior taking place in front of her and exclaimed, Ino. What is the meaning of this? With her hands folded across her chest, Ino moved away from Sakura and stood in front of Tsunade. Her appearance made it clear that she most likely ran all night to get home. Tsunade remained silent, which Ino interpreted as permission to go on. I figure from your voice that you have a hard time believing a word that's coming out of her mouth. I did not die by Naruto's hand, as you can see. If you can overlook her exaggerated story, some parts of it are true. Tsunade wondered where this was going and nodded her head to continue. She placed her chin over her hands and waited for the story to begin. Then enlighten me as to which part was true. Ino. Inquired Sakura. The story itself didn't shock her as much as the transformation in her best friend. Although they were competitors, their friendship came first. Sakura noticed that something was different about Ino as she examined her. Sakura said, How are you here? We thought he killed you. She wanted to know. When Naruto made that threat, he appeared to be very serious. If he simply let her go like that, then something must have happened between them. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys that I'm not dead, Ino grumbled. She went on with her story, ignoring Sakura's shocked expression. Did she ever tell you how she made that decision that almost left me for dead? Wondering what Ino was talking about, Tsunade squinted and gazed at Sakura. What decision did she make? Ino shouted, the choice that nearly cost me my life. She was suddenly letting all of her pent-up frustration and rage out. She figured that my death would mean something if Sasuke killed the both of them along with me. The new information shocked Tsunade more than she could have ever imagined, causing her to drop her jaw. Tsunade gazed at her apprentice and asked, Sakura, is this true? Sakura didn't appear embarrassed by what she had done. She returned Ino's gaze with a glare that matched her own. I did what was right. We all know about the sacrifices that ninjas make. It would have been better to see them dead than alive. Ino shot back, then why didn't you do it? Sakura cried out, because you were the one who got caught, instead. What started out as friendly conversation quickly turned into a heated dispute. The two girls were so engrossed in their yelling that they failed to notice the Hokage was there. Unfortunately for the onlookers, the fight was not enjoyable to watch due to the harsh calling and insults that were thrown. Tsunade called out, girls, to get their attention. Tsunade closed her eyes and tried to force her headache to go away. Both of you have issues right now and personally, I don't give a damn. You will settle this yourselves, but in any case, Sakura was justified in making the correct decision if you could see it as a correct decision. She took a new sheet of paper out and sat down again, saying, not everything you learn is always the best course of action. Get out before I decide to punish the both of you. Sakura and Ino heeded the warning and hurried out of the room. Disappointed, Shizune sat there and shook her head. You went easy on them. Tsunade gave her a look. She found herself alone in the office as Shizune scowled and vanished, asking, why are you still here? Don't you have some paperwork to do? As everyone walked out of the room, Tsunade sighed. She yanked out a piece of paper and stared at it. Read aloud, criminal sightings. Tsunade thought, ironic. She abruptly pulled out the bill with this title while they were talking about criminals. What exactly have you done now, Naruto? Tsunade hurriedly crumpled the paper and threw it away. She let out a sigh. It seemed to her that today would be a long day. Alongside Sakura and Ino, after arguing until blood was on the verge of spilling, both girls left the office. Sakura was pointing her finger at Ino's chest, all up in his face. Sakura yelled, "What the hell was that, Ino? Pig! You didn't have to go and do that." Ino gave a snort. "What makes your life more interesting than mine? You had no right to make that decision." "You know what, Ino? I'm tired of this. Let's settle this once and for all." Sakura argued. She had had enough of Ino's incessant complaining. She was going to finally show her that she was the best. She intended to demonstrate to Ino that she had changed since she required assistance from bullies so many years prior. Sakura finally came up with a smart idea, and Ino grinned. "At least now, I know there's something up there besides empty space." Field 9 of training. When Ino began to stretch, she remarked, "You have no idea how long I have been waiting for this, Sakura." She had plenty of time to consider the fight she desired with Sakura during her lonesome journey back to Konoha. She wasn't going to hold anything back, and this was going to ease her rage. Sakura's knuckles cracked. "You know you can't beat me. I wasn't the Hokage's apprentice for nothing." Unimpressed by Sakura's position, Ino retorted, "And I'm just the underprivileged girl that didn't get that special training. Ah, poor me." The two girls waited for a signal to start their fateful match, standing roughly 10 feet apart. Ino shifted into her typical position, slightly putting her right foot forward. With her glove on her hand, Sakura stood there. She never bothered to put on a glove for her right hand because it was still injured. One leaf twisted and twirled in the wind as it flew into the field. Both of the girls vanished from view as soon as the leaf touched the ground. They fought quickly, with neither of them considering anything other than winning the watch. With a hard left kick to the ribs, Ino countered a left-handed hook by bending under it and twisting her body around. Sakura jumped away from the kick as soon as she realized her attack had missed. Sakura slammed them to the ground after flipping through a few hand seals as soon as she touched down. Doden. Dorio Dango. Sakura sank her hands into the ground and then withdrew a chunk of it. "Take this, Ino." She threw it at Ino, unsure of what to do next. When Ino noticed a massive boulder approaching her, her eyes widened. She dodged the assault by leaping away. Sakura whispered into Ino's ear, "You're so slow." There was nobody there when Ino turned around and gave a roundhouse kick in midair. When Ino noticed Sakura standing atop the boulder, he threw a kunai in her direction and asked, "Where are you aiming?" The kunai penetrated Sakura and became embedded in it. Ino quickly came to terms with the fact that she was imprisoned in a genjutsu. She put her hands to her chest and said, "Almost had me, Sakura." "Kai," she exclaimed, breaking the delusion. She searched for Sakura, attempting to locate her. Since there was still dust in the air, Sakura could hide anywhere and buy time to think of a strategy. Close to training field 9 with a yawn, Shikamaru asked, "Why are we here again, Kiba?" Being pulled from his bed at such an early hour of the morning was not something he enjoyed. "Stop your whining, Shikamaru. Akamaru and I saw Ino and Sakura heading towards this training field in a rush. I think they're going to fight." Lee gave a headshake. Before anyone could respond, there was a loud eruption and more fighting. Kiba-san. "Why would they fight? They're best friends." Lee hurried over to the fighting and said, "Never mind." In order to avoid missing the fight, everyone else rushed after him. Field 9 of training, Ino exclaimed, "Futon. Daitopa," as she completed her hand seals. Everything was soon blown away by winds that blew in from all sides. For this technique, she had used more chakra than usual. She was aware that Sakura was planning while hiding somewhere, but she would not get the opportunity. Sakura yelled, "Take this," as she emerged behind Ino. As Ino felt Sakura land a left hook on her stomach, she was unable to brace herself for the impact. The tree split in two after Ino was flung hard into it. She forced herself to stand again and coughed up some blood. Sakura assertively stated, "You lost, Ino. Give up before I beat you down to an inch of your life." She approached Ino and gave her a kick to the ribs, knocking her old friend to the ground. Ino stood up slowly while inhaling deeply. She was fortunate that she managed to throw herself away and escape the attack by using the momentum of Sakura's kick. Ino smirked and clasped her hands together, saying, "I was never the obedient ninja type of girl. I'm sure you remember this one. Kage Bushin no Jutsu." When Sakura noticed 5 Inos standing in front of her, she squinted. She tightened her hold on her left hand and rushed in. She approached the first clone and proceeded to destroy it. Ino put her hands down quickly and whispered, "Doden. Dorogashi." Despite the fact that an earth wall rose from the ground, Sakura broke through it. Sakura was shocked to see Ino standing in front of her with her hands in an oval shape when she broke through the wall. Sakura recognized the seal instantly and rushed to it, but several of Ino's clones emerged from the ground, grabbed her ankles, and stopped her in her tracks. Ino shouted, "Shintenshin no Jutsu." Sakura looked on helplessly as the jutsu hit her. Ino sensed her spirit entering Sakura and departing from her body. From that moment, Ino's grin turned sinister. Sakura's body responded when Ino raised her right hand and said, "Let's see how much pain you can withstand." Ino pointed to a clone and said, "You there." The clone nodded and began to squeeze Sakura's already injured hand, saying, "Squeeze this hand as hard as you can." "Ah!" screamed Sakura and Ino. Squeezing it was excruciatingly painful, but it had to be done. Sakura can get even more retribution by making her hand hurt. After enduring the agony for an additional minute, Ino returned to her body. She felt herself breathing heavily and experiencing some residual pain as soon as she stepped into her original body. She turned to look at Sakura, who had successfully destroyed the clone that was holding her hand. Ino jumped into the air and landed behind Sakura after noticing that she was distracted by her injured hand. She exploited Sakura's discomfort by slamming her elbow into her face, which caused the pain to distort her. Since Sakura was too deformed to protect herself, Ino persisted in her attack, launching a barrage of blows at her chest before seizing her right hand once more. Sakura moaned in agony and attempted to defend herself, but Ino was pressing down on her right hand at the time. She felt herself being flung into the air, and she gritted her teeth. Several of Ino's clones were already waiting for her in the air when she became aware of what was happening. She was thrown from one clone into another when a clone approached from behind and gave her a roundhouse kick to the back. The vicious attack went on until two of the clones kicked her together, sending her flying to the ground. Sakura gave a little scream of agony as she struck the ground so forcefully that it broke apart. Leveraging one of her clones, Ino leapt into the air. She managed to stay in the air above Sakura long enough for her to make her last move. "This is where I prove that I'm goddamn better than you." Ino slammed into Sakura, causing the ground to shatter even more under her blow. Time stopped abruptly, and Ino whispered, "QQ Danshaku." She sensed that Sakura's body was being pushed harder by her own weight. She could hear the tension building in her muscles with every second that went by. When Sakura felt Ino's attack hit her stomach, she let out a bone-chilling scream. Pain was taking on a completely different meaning for her body. It simply could not be described. It was much better to die than to lie here in pain. Ino moved her weight from Sakura's left side to her right, carefully removing her knee from her stomach. As Ino crushed the remaining bones in Sakura's right hand with her weight, she let out an even louder scream. Sakura clenched her jaw to stop the tears from streaming out. The agony had become so intense that it was intolerable. Sakura threw Ino off her after gathering all the chakra she possessed. Waiting for Sakura to rise, Ino flipped in midair and landed on her feet. Ino stood there, taunting her to get up with her left hand out, saying, "Come. I'm not done with you yet." Kiba said at random, "Who do you think is going to win?" There was silence. They watched the fight with too much attention. Shino speculated about the girls and said, "They're both at their limits right now. This is where their paths end. One will fall while the other will walk. Whatever the outcome, there will be changes." Exhausted from the match, the two girls stood there. After wiping the blood from her mouth, Sakura gripped her right hand. "I could have you thrown in jail for doing this to me, Ino." The number. Sakura was interrupted by Ino, who said, "Cut the crap, Sakura. In a fight, do you really think ninjas follow the rules? Do you think Naruto followed the damn rules when he let me live?" Sakura was incensed at Ino's actions. Rules is what sets us apart from criminals like Naruto. It is because of people like him that makes the rest of us look bad. Ino gave her old friend a fierce look. "Well, I remember a certain someone that already disobeyed a rule." "What was it again?" "Something about deserting their teammates." Ino laughed. Shikamaru let out a sigh. "This is so troublesome. Why can't women just leave their emotions at the door?" A quiet but irate voice boomed. "Care to repeat that sentence, Shikamaru-kun?" Shikamaru recognized the voice without turning around. He knew better than to confront a furious Hyuga, so he said, "Ah. I didn't mean it like that, Hinata." Kiba excitedly shouted out his thoughts before Shikamaru could explain his response. "To hell with the rules. Finish it." The laws and regulations governing ninjas were non-existent in the past. During the Shodem Hokage's reign, he believed that acting dishonorably and without following the law was barbarous. The ninja handbook was written with that goal in mind. With a battle cry, the two girls charged at each other, intent on delivering a final blow. With her left hand arched back, Sakura lunged forward, ready to slam it into Ino's face. Ino ducked when he saw the impending fist. She was aware that she could never match Sakura's strength. She would lose this match if she didn't time her counterattack correctly. Sakura saw the moment she had been waiting for when she was within striking range of Ino. Now, in response, Ino countered with a series of quick jabs to her ribs before finishing with a vicious uppercut. Ino opened her fist and let the palm slide harmlessly off her skin. Sakura fell to the ground, feeling herself losing consciousness. Breathing heavily, Ino said, "I hope that someday you'll open your eyes." Everyone was left wondering what was going on when Ino vanished in a cloud of smoke before anyone could rush up to congratulate them on the valiant battle. Lee barked, "Sakura-san. Are you okay?" Assuring the young Junin that the girl was alright, Tenten placed a hand on Lee's shoulder. Shino beat Lee before he could leave her up. Lee let out a sigh and let Shino take Sakura to the hospital, saying, "You shouldn't stress yourself over this. You're still injured." With a lazy tone, Shikamaru said, "That was a boring fight." He made no effort to accompany them to the hospital. It was simply too much trouble. Compared to a stuffy room, this was much better. Alongside Ino with her mind racing to find a place where she could be by herself, Ino fled the training ground at high speed. She needed time to process everything. She was taking so many detours as she ran farther into the woods that she didn't really pay attention to her destination and ended up in a flower-filled field. There were a wide variety of flowers there, each one distinct and different. She was astounded by what she saw. She quickly forgot her concerns as she started to identify the flowers as she cautiously made her way into the field without damaging any of the blooms. She was able to name the majority of the flowers because she spent most of her childhood afternoons at her parents' flower shop. She learned to appreciate the beauty of these flowers and the meanings they represent from her upbringing in a flower shop. She sat down with a faint smile on her face and tears welling up in her eyes. "Is this what I wanted? Revenge is supposed to make a person feel good, but why do I feel so miserable?" Ino pondered to herself. She still felt a sense of regret even after getting her retribution. The pain persisted despite her repeated assurances that Sakura deserved it. Ino felt guilty because it simply lingered in her heart. With tears in her eyes, Ino remarked, "I guess all those stories about revenge being sweet was utter bullshit." They quickly spread across her cheeks and onto the floor. She was crying, but she didn't know why. Ninjas don't cry. They only ever cry when a friend passes away. A relative. Only then was it acceptable to cry. The rules stated that. Rule number 34. Ninjas are not allowed to display their feelings. Ino chuckled to herself in private. "I sound like Sakura now," she said, looking up at the gray, overcast sky. The heavens appeared to be sharing her sorrows and crying with her. She kept thinking that perhaps, just possibly, she wasn't really alone. With Itachi and Naruto exhausted both physically and mentally, Itachi left the cave. Anyone would be worn out after spending nearly 3 hours inside. He saw that Naruto was nowhere to be seen because the area surrounding the cave was still intact. He turned on his Sharingan and scanned the area for any hints of chakra residue. He moved forward a few paces in an attempt to find his straying partner. A chilly voice murmured from behind Itachi, "I told you I hate waiting. You must not care about who you're dealing with." Itachi's entire body froze in terror. He was unable to even look back. Was I given the drug injection once more? Itachi pondered. He had no sensation of anything pricking his back. His muscles were clenched together, making it impossible for him to move his mouth in response. The voice replied, "I didn't inject you with anything." Did he read my thoughts? Itachi pondered, but dismissed the absurd idea. Telepathy could not possibly exist in this world. Simply put, it was not feasible. Though there is no real bloodline that enables one to read thoughts, the Sharingan is very close. Simply put, it was not feasible. Naruto repeated, "Do you want to play a game?" But his tone sounded very aloof this time. The voice made Itachi feel as though his body was reacting to him out of fear. The fact that he was immobile did not frighten him. It was the inability of his body to move. With his cloak covering the majority of his face, Naruto emerged from the darkness. Itachi felt his body reverting to normal after Naruto gave him a single nod. He manipulated his fingers, relieved to have control over his body again. Itachi's curiosity overcame him and he asked, "What did you do to me?" Ignoring the elder Uchiha, Naruto turned his head. Missing the glare Itachi gave him, the blonde began to leave, saying, "I'm not obligated to tell you anything." Alongside Ino. When Ino eventually made it back to her apartment, night had already fallen. In any case, she had no intention of staying out that late. It wasn't because she was forbidden from staying out so late. Rather, she wasn't particularly excited about returning to an empty apartment. It was exactly what she needed to spend her time in that field of flowers. The one thing that made her think of her parents was the flowers all around her. She was able to regain her inner Ino and meditate peacefully while she was sitting there alone. It's said that flowers and jewelry are a girl's best friend, but if you can't afford either, You can still give a girl her privacy and she'll be fine. She made a beeline for the restroom as soon as she walked into her apartment. She didn't intend to do it, but all she wanted to do was soak in there until her skin was wrinkled. Instead of being small, her apartment was spacious. The apartment had 2 bedrooms and all the amenities she could possibly require. She simply wanted to be by herself and never bothered to find a roommate. She suppressed a low groan as she stepped into the bathtub, missing the cozy, warm sensation she had experienced while on her missions. She had the impression that everything was fine and that her problems were simply being washed away. She was nearly impossible to tear away. Not much, aside from that blonde. Oh no, that nasty, obnoxious blonde. She kept thinking about him whenever she was by herself. It resembled an obsession. What it was about him was unknown to her. Ino sighed, wondering if it was his presence, his power, or his status. She was unsure of what it was. There was simply something about him that set him apart from everyone else. Whatever it was, she didn't like that it was causing her to think about him. She recalled the final day she had ever seen him. Everything literally went to hell on that day. She recalled that he had mentioned a speech about friends, but she ignored him. She was blinded by the rational judgment to logically conduct her own investigation and simply followed the crowd, insulting the boy. Ibiki, her mentor, would be extremely disappointed in her. Ino lowered her head into the water and uttered, "Damn. I'm no better than the rest of them." After learning what he was, she treated him like the plague, just like the villagers. She wanted to let go of her guilty conscience, so she screamed underwater. To make matters worse, he had saved her life, and she didn't want to feel this way any longer. The thing that annoyed her the most was that if he had killed her, she wouldn't be acting this way, but perhaps that wasn't his intention. Too many questions remained unanswered. Tomorrow morning with trepidation, Ino strode into the Hokage tower. She was a little jittery because she had practiced the speech she would deliver to the Hokage. She approached Shizune at the front desk and said hello. "Good morning Shizune-san. Is Tsunade Sama in right now?" Shizune pivoted and gazed at the nearly shut door. She listened to it with her ear next to the door. "Don't snore." It was good that she was conscious. Shizune smiled and said, "Go right ahead Ino." After thanking her, Ino entered. When Ino entered, Tsunade was reading a newspaper and was not particularly aware of her presence. In an attempt to get her attention, Ino gently knocked on the door. "Excuse me Hokage. Sama?" Tsunade looked up to see the youthful Yamanaka standing at her door and asked, "Yes? What can I do for you today?" Ino replied, I was wondering if I could get some time off." Startled by her request, Tsunade choked on her tea. "What?" Ino reiterated, "I want some time off." She needed this, but she also understood how difficult it is to let one of their best take a break. She may do something that she will later regret if she doesn't take this time off. Tsunade squinted as she examined the girl intently. "And what are your reasons for taking time off?" As the Hokage looked down at her, Ino fumbled with her fingers, feeling anxious. "This is just something that I have to do." She has reported mission reports here many times, but this time was unique. Here, she had a personal question for the Hokage. Tsunade gave a headshake. "That isn't a good enough reason. You must have a personal objective here. Why don't you tell me what's going on and I'll see what I can do for you?" Ino paused, uncertain whether or not to tell her. She had been preparing for this all night, but now she found herself standing in front of Tsunade, unable to speak and unable to recall a single word. "I just want some time away from my friends." Tsunade asked, "Is this about what happened on your last mission?" She noticed the pain that Ino was attempting to hide in her eyes. It is normal for everyone to be hurt at some point in their lives, but what makes them unique is how they deal with it. Ino replied slowly, "Hi." At the moment, she couldn't be with her friends. She was not yet prepared to forgive them. The pain was simply too great. Tsunade let out a sigh. 6 months Ino. I'm giving you 6 months to do whatever that you must do, but after that, I'm assigning you back on the active duty list. Do you understand me? Eagerly, Ino nodded her head. 6 months was even better than the 2 months she had anticipated. Head bowed, she said, "Thank you Hokage Sama," and walked out of the room. As the girl left her office, Tsunade watched. When she saw Naruto without his mask, she saw the same expression in his eyes. It was that little glimmer of pain. There was a limit to the amount of pain that the human heart could bear. If it's too much, the person will lose it. She couldn't stop thinking about this problem. If only your parents were still alive Ino. Ino must handle her issues on her own. She should be able to do it because she was a strong girl. Alongside Naruto was strolling through the forest when he sensed a familiar figure approaching from behind. Naruto asked, "Did you finally catch up?" He knew who it was without even turning around. Not even gasping for air, Itachi approached him. In a monotone, he answered, "You slowed down." Naruto said, "I don't remember the way." Itachi looked around as though he was looking for something. "It doesn't matter. We're here." Naruto scowled. They were surrounded by trees and more trees. They were in the middle of a forest. They weren't even close to Kuni or K's. Here is where? Itachi gestured toward a vine grove that was forming between two big trees, the base. Nothing in the area that even vaguely resembled a base caught Naruto's attention. "If you're wasting my time, Itachi, I swear I will." "You'll what?" Itachi asked, looking directly into Naruto's eyes. "Kill me? You can't kill me, you need me." Naruto returned the glare. Naruto approached for a closer look and saw that there was a genjutsu covering the area. "I've been known to defy rumors. It's a big one, really." When Itachi got close to the vines and touched them, the ring on his finger began to glow. They gained access to a secret cave as the vines themselves began to break apart. Astonished by the formation, Naruto entered. He couldn't possibly have discovered the base's location on his own. It was simply too well concealed. A chilly voice said, "Greetings Uzumaki-san." To him. With his head slightly raised, Naruto gazed at the figure perched atop a statue. His eyes narrowed as he examined the figure intently. "It looks like those rumors of your death was greatly exaggerated pain."
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.